Adam.
Good? All right.
Nice work. You actually.
All right, guys.
right?
Good afternoon. I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, April 29th Plan Commission, or I'm sorry, Comprehensive Plan Special Meeting. If you would, please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today and certainly coming back. We've got food back there for anybody in the audience. We obviously have enough food to feed a bunch of people. So if you're hungry, feel free to go back there and grab something. This is a continuation of a Plan Commission meeting, or I'm sorry, a comprehensive plan meeting that we had earlier this month to walk through changes and modifications to the comprehensive plan. There's been a significant amount of, discussion around this. I'd like to get through it today. For those members in the public, the idea would be today we get the final version of the comprehensive plan that's presented or that's available for the Monday, May 4th meeting, and then we will take public comment there and we will vote on it at the mid-May meeting, which is the third Monday in May at 7:30 in the morning. So that's why we want to make sure we have the commentary and public input in advance of that. Counselors, I would just, obviously, just like last time, make sure we're speaking freely and clearly on what our intentions are here. Don't worry about, formalities of food. Go down there and grab whatever you need. And Heather, if you wouldn't mind kind of jumping in and just letting everybody know where we are, what the next steps are going to be, and we'll go from there.
Yes, so counselors, you should have a document that Adam and I worked on, which was the Uniquely Zionsville Council Comments document. It's the same document we discussed in the last meeting. We got through items 1 through 10, and so we're going to pick up on item 11. I do know there are some items that don't have consensus, and so to be able to kind of figure out a path forward, I think the best suggestion that Adam and I have is that we will create a list of those items in advance of the meeting on May the 4th. We will have those, and we're probably going to have to take a vote on them at that meeting so that we can know whether or not we're including them or not for the final recommendation on May 16th. So rather than do that today and go back and revisit items, we thought we would start on number 11, kind of work through the list, and then we will polish this back up with additional comments, send it out to you after the meeting. Certainly happy to have any discussion. If you have things that you are working on, you have maybe a lack of consensus with another council member, perhaps as well in between now and May 4th, you can get with each other and try to resolve those differences so we can have some clear recommendations by that May 4th meeting. So that's what our recommendation is. So we would start on number 11.
Could I just ask if there's something that pertains to 1 through 10 that's already on the map that we don't want to do now? Could I just bring that up quickly, or is that not?
I would maybe recommend we do it at the end, just because we haven't talked about any of these other items and we've still got a substantial list to go through.
I'm just worried I've got a hard stop at 2:30 and I don't know if we'll.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation, but I'm just making recommendations. So.
I think a lot of what's coming is mine, and it's pretty clear, and we'll chew through it.
Yeah, let's just go as far as we can, as quickly as we can, and if
Okay.
there's, Councilor McEldair, if you got a hard stop at 2:30, maybe we just try to grab a couple minutes before that.
Thank you.
Adam, do you have capability of putting things up on the TV from there or no? Okay, I just want to make sure you did in case we got to that spot.
I believe I do.
Perfect.
And he just may have to switch to get my screen to share, but
Yeah.
Should be able to do that.
So then, Councilor Norris, do you want to jump in on 11, or do we want Adam to guide this, or how do you guys want to?
Probably most efficient if Adam goes ahead and guides it through real quick, and we'll pick up where we go.
Okay. So number 11, the comment was that there's a feeling that the plan should have a lighting policy, or that the plan should respect dark skies and light pollution for all of Zionsville. Is there any way to get a lighting provision added? This is one where I think, it could be as easy as adding an objective. We have a a goal in the Parks chapter that I thought this would fit under if you would like it included. If you want more than, the addition of an objective, we can discuss that. Ultimately, I think this is another one of those instances where the comprehensive plan could establish the groundwork, but ultimately this would be likely needed as a zoning ordinance amendment with specific to lighting requirements.
When I read this, I felt like this falls into that category where I had multiple points. This was not mine about the lighting. I'm guessing Tim that maybe wrote this. I don't know.
Did not.
Okay.
Whose was it?
I think it was mine.
It was
Okay.
you? Okay. When I read that, I felt like that fell in with we need to rewrite the subdivision zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of things that were very development-related that I think I called as called to actions, right? Like there were little sections that we had to ponder. I think that's a great point. But I do think, in my heart, it falls into a zoning ordinance more than a comprehensive plan. I don't know.
Yeah, but the comprehensive plan will help guide, right, what future decisions. So Adam, in your professional planning experience, how do you feel about adding something that the town should objectively look to, looking at its statutes going forward for dark skies?
Yep, and yeah, like I said, I think that fits best under Goal 2, which is on page 110, is protect ecological systems, environmental features, woodlands, and high-quality habitat. It's kind of,
I think that fits in perfectly there, and I'd be fully supportive of it. I think everyone, I don't know if anyone here is going to object to a dark skies.
No, not objecting at all.
and yeah, and I certainly understand the importance of this with everything else going on in other areas of Boone County right now.
Is there a way to pull together the different changes we want, maybe not exactly for the comprehensive plan, but something like as you do these, you type in so that we can take that into an ordinance instead of just having it all over our planning document and doing nothing with the action of actually firming it up?
And there is a section in the implementation in the last chapter, but we can, as a kind of standalone piece, certainly create a summary of here's all of the areas where the comprehensive plan says review this or consider this in a zoning update process.
Great.
Perfect. I think we're good on 11. Oh,
Yeah, so we're in the parks system page on 110.
Yeah.
Does it carry over into like the next roundabout that we create and the town of Zionsville's lighting requirements as well? Or is that, because I think that's kind of where I was headed with it. When you add a new roundabout to a very rural area, it becomes daylight to the property surrounding it. And that's who I want to protect as well. I want the street and the sidewalks to be lit, but beyond that, it's very intrusive to the neighbors of those properties. So I guess I just want to make sure that it casts out further the dark skies requirement than just, more than the parks and et cetera. So I guess that's where I would like it to cast over the whole town as we move forward. Dark skies is a better management of light.
Okay. I can look where that might best fit, and I will just say specific to obviously what would be installed as part of a town-led infrastructure or public works project, then I would say certainly that doesn't need to be in the zoning ordinance, right? You can do that whenever you want. I think, and so if we were misunderstanding or the thought or intent was obviously when private development comes in, make sure that they are being guided in the appropriate way. But I understand your point too, that a lot of it may be more on the streetscape side than interior.
I think if we're going to require it of them, we should be leading in that direction as well. So however we can add it to accommodate both would be my preference.
Okay.
You got what you need there, Adam?
Yep, thank you. Okay. Number 12 is lengthy, and even then, it is me paraphrasing what were a number of comments related to open space more broadly, as well as some specifics about ecological or habitat connectivity. So the full list of specific comments is at the end of this Word document, but I think to summarize, the plan acknowledges the importance of open space, how that came through the public engagement process. It is in land use, parks, there's a lot of places in the document where we touch on that. What is not specifically in the plan, and I think what some of the comments were regard to, was a wish or desire for the plan to include a specific percentage that may be required as minimum open space going forward. I think one comment was 25%, another was 30%. And again, ultimately, we can put it in the plan. It would need to be enacted through zoning and/or subdivision control regulations to really carry the teeth. And this could be a minimum open space percentage. It could also be handled in lot coverage and some other development standards. So I think we're looking for guidance as to whether you feel the plan as drafted sufficiently emphasizes that, and this is again a conversation you would get into more detail as part of the zoning process, or if you want the comprehensive plan to take that next step and get to recommending a specific percentage or other more specific criteria that maybe would inform zoning changes.
Adam, I want to ask a question about this. In particular, how many steering committee meetings did we sit through where this exact topic was brought up time and time again?
I will say multiple.
Multiple, right?
Yes.
And what is, generally speaking, what is your response, just to get it out there, about the issues with putting a minimum percentage on something like this, right?
Yeah, I think at the comp plan level, it's difficult. And really, I think what we've tried to say in the plan is to make open space meaningful, make it, so it is valuable habitat. So we're protecting existing site features through the development process, not, clearing all the land and then, we'll put back however many trees are required per linear feet in the buffer. It's tough in that, again, if it's always a balance. If the emphasis is on we really need to buffer adjacent development to the west, then maybe more focus should be put there. What exactly that percentage is, I'm not sure. Or we can say, or you have to buffer the whole thing, but then maybe you hit your 25% just with a large perimeter buffer, but you haven't really made valuable open space,
right,
or protected the areas that need to be protected.
Right, and then a developer can come through and say, look, there's my 25% minimum as called for under the comp plan, but it's all buffer space and there's nothing in between there, right?
And if ecological connectivity is completely blown, but they chose 25% that they left open, what do we get out of that?
Right.
So
Right.
I
And so-
totally agree. I don't think the number necessarily gets us where we want to be.
That's where I tend to go with this, and I just want to make sure that we emphasize this point to this group and to the public, because this was a huge issue for a few of the steering committee members. And at the end of the day, I support 100% incorporating the language that we have already with regards to open space and creating green spaces and connectivity and so on and so forth. I'm just not, just like I was when we talked about density and putting specific numbers of homes that we should expect, I'm not in favor of telling the development world, the home building world, what amount, right? That'll be up to the decision makers if they believe that they've met their sufficient green space requirements or something like that. I think if you put a minimum on it, it can help you or it can hurt you in either way.
It can be manipulated.
Yes.
Right.
And I would say, I think this is another area where, when it comes to that zoning discussion, it's important for you all to consider, you know, how much of this would be identified as kind of administrative review and deferring to staff and their ability to guide, again, what is the best way to accomplish the intent versus a strict percentage, and
Right.
where
It
that
gives-
spectrum, where you want to be on that spectrum is tough to capture in the comp plan.
Right. So I guess I'll just throw it out there. I am fine with taking no action as the comp plan is written on number 12. And that would be, I guess, my thought that I would throw out to the group. I think it covers green spaces. I think it talks about open spaces. I think it covers it.
I think this kind of touches on something that we should consider. Yes, we're the town council, we have this final manipulation of specifics. But they met for a year and a half, and this is the consensus they came to. So I do have, small issues with us getting on every single item they made progress with that we keep pulling back. I think it's right to pull some things back. I think that's great. We are invested in the whole picture of it, so I do think this is productive, what we're doing. But I think we have to make sure that we're not undoing what Adam, who we hired and is a professional, helped his steering committee come to.
Right, and there were a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion about all these, and this is the final product, right? So this is what the steering committee came up with and went with, so.
As long as it was all captured. I mean, I went to
Yes.
some meetings where people, were pretty vociferous about, leave this mural or do this, and then I would see a map come back and it wasn't represented. So, to say that we had public sessions and everybody's had their chance to speak does not necessarily say that it's all represented here. So that's the only thing I would bring up. My question has to do with those multiple sections that are referenced here, pages 67, 69, 76. Is there reference to space preservation, density, ecological connectivity? I mean, is there something at least in there without necessarily a defining number?
Yes,
So
and that's what the
is that what you're
comment
getting at
is,
there?
that all of those pages talk about
Defined.
open space preservation, ecological connectivity, but don't have the specific percentage
okay.
or width of buffer or what have you.
Okay.
Yeah, I would tend to lean towards Counselor Norris's approach here on 12 and kind of allow the plan to dictate path forward there and kind of leave it alone.
Yep. Anyone else on 12? 13.
13 was easy. We already have some trails in the Hinkie developments that do allow golf carts. So I was just saying, we had to either decide if we were going to make a new term for those trails or just strike the non-motorized and have one definition.
Yeah, there's a glossary at the end of the plan here, and trail is included in that, and in that definition, we have non-motorized. So if that conflicts or contradicts with existing town policy, we can strike that.
Adam, I'll look up while we're going through the meeting. We do have an ordinance on motorized vehicles on trails, so we should just probably make sure the language is consistently applied. But we do have, in certain development plans, for example, I think Hinkie was noticed, that it's been approved for within the property. So I think we could,
Isn't that in the
it's in there.
rural district, though? That's not in the Zionsville urban,
Yeah, and it was especially it was in their PUD as well, I believe, so.
Yeah.
But I'll pull that specific term and send it to you.
yeah.
Okay.
I think this number 14 is kind of what I said before, where there are a lot of calls to action on subdivision control ordinances. And I personally was just saying, are these consistent with what the town actually does? Are we changing ordinances? One easy example is when it says continue supporting Z-Works. How are we now supporting it? We stopped financially supporting it before. Are we saying go Z-Works? That's great. I think Z-Works is awesome, but they are specifically mentioned in this comp plan. And that seemed off to me. So I was saying that needed to be pulled. The feasibility study for Zionsville Community Center, I said, that there's a lot of mixed feelings in our town about community centers, and as soon as we start saying we're doing a feasibility study, then we've got the push and pull from the community of who wants it, who doesn't want it, and we haven't even defined what a community center is, because I personally talk with people and everybody has a different idea in their mind of what the community center is. Some think it's free, some think it's a place to gather, some think it's a pool. So,
Some people would say that's the purpose of the feasibility study.
yes, my point of it is, are we doing it?
I
Rather
mean,
than,
there was a, I mean, there was
thought
a
we already did
feasibility
it.
study done in the last administration.
that's what I'm saying. I thought we already did it. The comprehensive plan is do a feasibility study. So I'm just showing inconsistencies in the wording, like we already did one. Are we doing another one? So that goes along with the same kind of, the wording isn't right. If we're supporting Z-Works, then we aren't actually supporting them. The next thing says expand pedestrian and bicycle access into South Village. We just pulled the current vision for the new roundabout area is actually pulling the bike lane from the road because of the overconfidence that it gives a biker going into the roundabout. But there's still going to be some overlay area that the road would be wide enough for the biker, but it won't be designated biker. So once I started reading expanding pedestrian and bicycle, I just feel like it was over-promising right there. But we are doing pedestrian walkways, so I wasn't sure if that just needed a little tweaking on that sentence. And then the final sentence, it actually said integrate bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure into, and they use the word all roadway projects. And it's not going to happen in all roadway projects, so I just asked him to soften the word. And so if you guys have any questions, those were.
Like, the intent is all, but we may not accomplish all.
Right,
Maybe
so,
all where available or where applicable. or something.
right, and he said, consider, or, consider bicycle and pedestrian. These are just tweaks on the wording that I was trying, like, there were some wordings where it said, ensure, we'll come to that, once we put that in our planning document, it says, our intent is to put bicycle paths in all roadways, and then when we don't do it, someone can come back at us. Or when we say, we're going to support Z-Works, but we don't. And we had an administration shift in policy that we're not going to identify specific companies to support while we don't support other companies. So I'm just looking for consistency in what we're actually doing, even though I know this is a planning document. It has to line up.
I'm in agreement with the Z-Works idea of what you're stating, but with regards to stating all for all roadway projects, well, as we increase and add new roads and new road projects, I think we have to put that at the front of our ideas with regards to that project, that we are going to commit to integrate pedestrian and bicycles.
I thought that
into all
Adam
of those.
handled it really well by switching the word to consider, because then we're not locked in. All is a really tough word for me when we're making a document, because never all those superlatives are hard to swallow in a page that says this is what we're going to
Well,
do.
if you include consider, then all can stay, because you're just considering it for all.
Yeah, it's replacing
Yeah, it takes
integrate
integrate
to
out, but
Yeah.
leaves all.
Yeah,
And
we
I-
just have to soften it is
Yeah,
kind of
and,
what
and
I
I
would
think
say.
the expanding pedestrian bicycle access into the South Village, that should be a goal as well. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that, the bike lane getting nixed means we need to change the verbiage.
I was just trying to again, soften it,
So it sounds like softening the language on page 103 to consider feasibility, softening the language on page 86 and on page 2, but for page 79, or 179, 79, is that, yeah, 79, maybe the answer is we just remove specific companies.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the bullet, we don't have to remove bullet point 4. We can say continue supporting organizations
Yeah.
related to startups,
Yeah,
small
let's do that.
businesses.
Yes, yeah.
Because that is our goal. So let's
Yeah.
just remove Z-Works from that line, and then Under goal 3, I think it's important too that it says, it is important to maintain partnerships with key organizations. I'd be fine with putting including but not limited to after that.
And then putting
Well,
Z-Works in?
well, then it's got the chamber,
Oh, you're over here, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
it says, Z-Works is listed here,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
including
mind that.
but not limited to.
Yeah, yeah, I'm good with that, too. Is there
I like
anybody,
that.
anybody opposed to that on
I-
14?
Slightly opposed to it, just because we just shifted from helping anyone in particular, and now we're putting particulars back in. So if we're shifting back, that works, I don't care, but if we're not, we shouldn't say it.
Well, partnerships and supporting are different. We do have partnerships with the chamber when we block off. We allow them to pull special permits without paying fees.
Right.
You know, there's other things that we do. I think there's a difference between partnerships and supporting. I do think pulling specific companies out of bullet point 4 on the left there under goal 2 makes sense. And I also like the including and not limited to with those folks as it relates to partnerships in goal 3. And not listing anything by way of specific support. Yeah, I do like that.
I think does that language help everyone? Anyone?
It helps me just to
Yeah.
not
I think
say
it's
that we're
I
going
think
to continue supporting a specific.
It's a great catch.
And I will say this, I think some of this stuff is, you know, Counselor Sampson, you've mentioned a couple times that, you know, policy decisions, you know, with administrations and things of that nature, it is important to know that, you know, there has been shifts in specific organizations. There has been shifts in policies specific to administrations about community centers and things of that nature. And softening the language that doesn't necessarily tie people to, you know, when it says consider a feasibility study, then at some point they've got to come to someone to ask for the money to do it. And that's where you have the ability to say, well, wait a minute.
Right.
It was done 6 years ago.
Honestly,
or,
that was
you know,
just one of
whatever.
those where I'm like, didn't we just do this?
Yeah, that's fair.
So,
So I'm tracking, and I agree with everything, but on the 103, the feasibility study, is the solution there what you just suggested, Jason, that it's consider? Or,
Consider, yeah.
It
Consider a
actually
future-
says consider right
Yeah.
now, because I think a previous version of this said do a feasibility study.
Yeah.
So we softened it to consider, but if you just want it gone, it can go away.
yeah, I guess that's the final question. Does it need to be in there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've been through it once. I don't particularly,
I don't think it needs to be in there. And if it like, we've already got the feasibility from a very recent part, we have something to go on if we want to take an action. So why are we saying, and we may do it again?
I think probably just because it was, you know, we haven't moved on it, and a lot of people at meetings were bringing this topic up, and this was a way to capture it, but I don't know that it's imperative. I mean, consider could be all throughout the document, and then all of a sudden it's like, doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. I mean,
and
everything could be considered.
any administration can come in and request a
And
feasibility
consider
study.
it, yeah.
Right, but if we say
Without
if it says
comprehensive
we're
plan,
going
so.
to, that's where I was kind of like, it's kind of like a
Yeah,
call to
I can't say
action
you're
that we
going
just
to,
did.
I might just add one other thing to this, in that Adam's going to double check, but this may be the only place we talk about community center in here. And from one of the tools of a comprehensive plan, one of the uses is to chase funding. And if you don't mention it anywhere, even if you have a feasibility study, maybe it's just revisit the outcomes at the appropriate time to decide whether or not you want to proceed. If you don't mention it, then you can't use that as a justification to pursue funding. And that's becoming more and more critical to have that support with other funding sources that are out there.
I actually like what you just said, revisit the feasibility study instead of let's throw another one in. I don't know, if we're trying to keep it more of a current projection.
How about revisit consideration of?
Yeah,
It's very loose.
I'm right there with you.
But if we have to have something in there that allows us to chase money, consider revision,
Revisiting.
yeah,
a
consider
great point.
revisiting
It's a great catch.
feasibility study.
Sold.
And again, not to belabor any of this too much, but like with respect to the conversation about removing Z-Works, that makes sense. The, you know, partnerships with, but not limited to, you know, this plan, it has a lot of audiences, and I understand you all may know who the town is partnering with and all of those things, but to the casual reader, a lot of times if we just say, partner with the groups you need to partner with. They see it and say, like, who is that? So that's why we try to, explain some of that. If we, missed somebody, I apologize, but I certainly understand your point too, where if we're only calling out one group and the status of that partnership, happy to change it.
I like the lot, not limited
Yeah.
to language. I mean, that gets,
Okay.
that gets that over the hump for me.
And the partnership, not support,
Yeah.
Yep.
if that's already clear.
Yep. All right, anything else on 14? Move along to 15? Who's,
That's still me. The development density, there was commentary, it's been so long since I've looked at this part. There was commentary that certain parts of undevelopable land would no longer be counted in the gross, acreage of. I don't think it should be totally written off. Like, if you have to purchase part of a ecological untouched area as part of your purchase, how do we just say, oh yeah, that part doesn't count? Like, I could see discounting it in your, density calculation, but I don't see writing it off. They had to purchase the land, it's going to stay open land if it can't be developed. It should kind of count, because I don't think density is always our enemy if it's controlled right. If you get the density in the middle of a parcel and it's surrounded by beautiful ecological protected area, and people want to buy these dense homes in this little center of this area, I don't see why we would discount all the area that can't be built to make them spread out within the protected buffered area. Did that make sense how I said that?
Well, so what you're saying is, so if somebody bought 100 acres, and 50 of those acres are literally
Eagle Creek.
swampland.
Yeah.
And then they built 200 houses
Yes,
on the 50 acres.
yes.
And said it's only it's only 2 houses per acre, by calculating in that 50 that they're not building on?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get at the net
Yeah.
density thing, because it can be manipulated, we know it can be, to make it sound like an area is palatial properties when the reality is not that. So it's not about people purchasing land, or being forced to purchase land that they can't build on. It's part of whatever they're buying. It's just the calculation.
Right? So I'm saying I don't think that all of the property that can't be built on should be discarded in the calculation. If it, am I even?
Can't build a house on it,
am
why
I-
should it be?
Okay.
Is it being,
Everyone's being really quiet, so I'm like, oh.
is it being discounted now? Like, I'm trying to read in here
I
where it's.
think that's why I'm like, I
Is-
feel
is
bad.
it pulled out
I
there?
reviewed this back in December, so.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Well, I'm on page 70 here. I'm
yeah,
just
I
trying to.
feel like it says, are you on the right page here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first column, or the left column on page 70.
Concerns were expressed during the planning process that proposed development project may meet gross density guidelines, but not the desired character for an area if too many units are densely clustered. This is a particular concern for sites that includes large unbuildable areas that would be included in the density calculation. To address this, Zionsville will exclude existing site constraints from gross density calculations for floodway, floodplain, wetlands, airport runway, legal claims, oil and gas, electric transmission lines. So it is saying that anything that's unbuildable is excluded now. And I think that we're making it so people lose value for their land that they still might want to sell.
They don't lose value. It's just a density calculation.
Right, but a builder's going to pay more.
Not if they can't build on it.
Not if they can't build on it. I have almost all of my property is floodplain.
Okay.
It has not appreciated in value in the 6 years I've owned the home. It's not going to, because nobody can build on it.
Right.
So it doesn't change the fact that they're not going to be paying more for land they can't build on. It's just a calculation.
No.
But it penalizes the developer at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? So if I
So they
buy.
can't jam as many houses on.
But it's
No,
both. It
because if they
penalizes
buy a
both.
100-acre piece and they have 50 acres of other farmland and they build trails and things through it that they can't build homes through it, that should be an amenity.
That's their choice to buy the extra 50 acres. If they only want to
Well-
buy the 50 acres that they're building houses on, then that's fine.
So Tim, I want to play a different angle on this. Now you're the farmer. okay? You're the farmer, you have farmland in your area. Some of these farmers are getting older, and they are ready to cash out and go live their retirement near their grandchildren.
Yep.
When a developer comes in, if they can build 100 houses, they make 200,000 per house. And so they're willing to pay $1 for the land because they can build so many houses on there. If they can only build 100 houses, even though it's still in the same constraint of whether they wanted to build 200 or 100, based on density numbers, they pay less for the land. So the farmer in the end is actually who's hurt. So we are supposed to be looking at our constituents and not losing sight of who we're hurting. So yes, the neighbors might get mad because they don't want a development to come in, but the neighbors could go buy that farmland as well. So I feel like we're setting a price on the farmer's land if we say that only half of your land is worth buying.
If the half of the land that you're talking about is farmland, this isn't even going to apply. We're talking about land that you can't build on. You likely aren't going to be able to farm a marsh. You're not going to be able to farm a ravine. You're not going to be able to farm an area that is not buildable. So what's happening is developers are buying a chunk of land, and they're throwing in this calculation, and they're saying, hey, we're giving up 30 acres here, and so our calculation is whatever, a house per acre. And it's manipulating the situation because that land was never buildable, and the farmer was never going to get prime real estate rates for a swampland. So
Manipulating though, like I'm gonna push back, like that's the law, right? You take your gross density and that is the law. And then it's up to the people up here to be like, no, I'm gonna push back and I'm gonna tell you what the net density is, right? Like, you keep saying manipulating, I just wanna, it's not a manipulation, it's a calculation.
it can be the law and it can be manipulated, it can be both things.
You just present your best facts, right?
I think it is manipulation, but that's okay. If you want to clarify, that's.
If I could, real quick, I do want to just point out, I think with the meeting a couple weeks ago, I think the direction was to remove the density.
Let's just remove it.
Well, we removed the density guidelines from the land use classifications, if you recall. I think that was the direction, was to get rid of those ranges. So I think this, part of the reason this was in here was to balance that, for lack of a better term, and that I think some of those ranges were, again, as a gross density, this was meant to, again, acknowledge that that doesn't mean, 4 units per acre in the whole area. What I'll say is, another option would be, we could amend this to specify, again, with a zoning amendment or just in terms of planning department practice to require a developer to submit the gross density and to submit the net, if you will, like what's the density excluding these, what would be unbuildable areas that we've described here that are the larger easements, not every drainage and utility easement, right? But the big transmission lines, the pipeline easements, the floodplain, the things like that, so that both numbers are there.
I like that.
That's fine.
Then you at least know what you're dealing with when you're asking those questions.
I think including both is totally fine. I see where Sarah's consternation comes from because it says, to address, Zionsville will exclude existing site constraints from gross density calculations. If that's not the law, then let's not put it in there.
That's where I was. It doesn't match with what we actually do.
Gross and net.
Yeah, I mean, something about like, we will review the calculations at time of project.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to do anything that's contrary to what the law requires us to do.
But also, knowing that they can't build on these areas, we just increased open space.
Yeah,
well.
I get both sides of the
Yeah.
coin, right? And it'll just be up to one side to argue gross and one side to argue net, right? But pigeonholing the town staff, Roger, Mike, and whoever, into you must use gross minus this, or let's just follow the law.
Go ahead, Heather.
So could we find consensus around language that said to address this, Zionsville will review existing site constraints from gross density and net density calculations?
Works for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then do you even need to have these constraints include, all? Can you just pull that
That's
out?
what I wondered. Did we need to specify everything so specific?
I think it helps to at least convey
Okay.
what you're thinking about here.
All right.
What about include but not limited to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We
Which
can-
add but not limited to?
Yeah.
Because there could be other
Yeah, you're right.
things you can't build
That's a
on.
good one.
All right.
All right, I like that. Thank you.
Everybody good with 15? Yep.
I like that, but I would only say, particularly when you're thinking about balancing things out, I mean, I do agree that it's listing both and having them just be transparent, I think is helpful for decision-making. I'm not convinced we need to poll all density requirements yet. So it's just one of those things that I'll just have to, if this is one of those, we don't all agree, can we figure out before then? Because what I'd like to do is, instead of just arbitrarily saying we don't need it, I need to really overlay what is current. If zoning is going to determine the density, then I need to overlay the two to see how they would compare and contrast, to make sure we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Fair.
Anything else on 15? Okay, before we go to 16, I should have done this from the beginning and just given a shout out to Chris Simone at Amore Pizza for the pizzas.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks,
Oh, my
Chris.
gosh.
Thanks, Chris.
Sorry that you're
Fantastic.
having to watch us eat.
Yeah. All right, moving on to 16, which is figure 9.1. And there's a question about DPW confirming. Heather, or Sarah, is that also yours?
Probably. Let's see, currently states as one of our previous letters.
Or Adam, do you have anything to jump in?
This was a comment from DPW staff.
Oh.
That there is a note on the bottom of page 155 that says, in addition to pathways shown, subdivision control ordinance requires perimeter pathways be installed along all perimeter frontage roads. And they would like it to say, shall be required for all new, along existing, perimeter pathways along existing roadways will be required for all new subdivisions. So,
In development plans within the town?
I think it's the and development plans.
yes, it's a minor terminology. It's a minor change in verbiage that essentially broadens the applicability of the note, if you will.
Is that consistent with like our subdivision control ordinance and things that we already have in
I think we
place?
should add that to our subdivision control ordinance review paper that I asked you to do, if that's okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Number 17 is me again. There's a lot of times in this document that we say we're going to ensure what we're doing. So I pointed that out to Adam. Sometimes it's okay to be in there, but for the most part, I've done document review for corporations, and we were always told not to use that word because it actually, by definition, means guarantee. And if this is a planning document, I don't think we want to guarantee that all actions in it are taken that are listed on these pages. I said it was open to discussion, but I just wanted to point out that that's something I was trained in. So,
I think we want to ensure public safety, we want to ensure quality of life, we want to ensure standard of living, we want to ensure safe passages through the community. Everything else, if there's language that can be loose enough that doesn't essentially equate to a guarantee, I think that probably helps a little bit.
I mean, for me, just having voiced it and Adam saying he agreed that some of them did need to be changed to consider, or, I don't know, I think you said something like attempt to achieve. Adam, do you remember our meeting? You marked down some of them, but you said you were going to review them. I didn't know, do we need to go page by page on what we ensure or not?
I was
Or-
going to say, I'm looking like, oh, there's so many listed here.
Yeah.
I know, there's so many times. That was the problem. Like, if I'd seen it once or twice, I wouldn't have said anything, but I saw it, I don't know, what is that, 15 times?
61 insurers in this document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my point. There's just too many. And when I reviewed documents, we pulled it out.
Well, I would say that some of these, some of the use of the word insurer, I do like. I didn't think I would before, but I
Yeah.
do. Like,
Some are okay, for sure.
And I'll say, and
because they're even very, they're very the word ensure followed by some relative ambiguity.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, ensure all areas of Zionsville receive high-quality services. Well, sure, we want to do that. So,
So maybe not so much use of it?
Well, I'll say, yeah, I understand your comment, and I will say, I think some of them are maybe even in like notes or like as, you know, feedback we gathered through the public engagement process. We're happy to go back and look at all of the instances, and where it is more a policy directive, I think is what you're saying, where we need to review those, and make sure that it's either appropriate or where it may need to be softened. So I think we can take the big list of occurrences and, again, get more specific about what those changes may be, and I think if
Encourage.
yeah, if you're okay giving some deference to us for that,
I'm
I will have
totally okay
a,
with trusting you on this because when we spoke about it, you saw what I was saying, and I think you're going to handle it.
and again, I'll have that very specifically for you on Friday. The
Like red
intent
lines or
is to
whatever.
have all of this documented and back to you on Friday in advance of Monday's meeting.
Heather, you want to?
President Plunkett and I were just talking to Adam. I'll go through it as well. And I think what we were thinking from your comment, Counselor Sampson, is anything where there's like, we are going to ensure quality of life type things, we probably want to leave. And anywhere where it looks like we're guaranteeing we're going to do something specific, we would remove or change or revise the language. Does that make sense?
Sorry for giving you that work.
No, it's easy. That's an
All
easy
right.
one. Find and replace.
All right, great.
all right. Anything else for 17, or we move on to 18?
A lot of these next ones they're pretty much all me. Some of them are pretty easy.
Actually, I would say, I think, in trying to organize this, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
I don't think there is particularly a lot of discussion needed on anything on 18 through 27.
Yeah, these were my proofreading. Once I found something, I was like, shoot, I don't think this has been proofread or finalized. And we're supposed to be voting on it as a final product. So I used to audit documents. So as I read it, I just wrote notes. And it's spelling errors, it's punctuation, it's, I think someone mentioned there was a section that they were worried about it because it said townhome apartments. That was actually an error, where there was supposed to be a comma between them instead of being called a townhome apartment, right? And then just some of the verbiage, Holiday Farms was spelled with one L. So anyway,
Same here.
that's, I think all of those, if you read through them, if anybody has any question on that, ask me, but it's literally just editing that I'm pretty confident.
And
about.
I've tried to put notes in here, so again, where, you know, if you said the sentence reads a little awkward,
Yeah.
I've rewrote the sentence, or is it correct to say Parks and Rec manages golf? I think your suggestion was oversee.
Yeah.
Because it's actually subcontracted to someone to manage.
So you've made those edits from 18 to 27?
Correct.
And I like the notes, everything you've addressed, I think is the right approach.
Yeah,
I think since those were just kind of, grammar edits there, and tweaks, Tim, or Counselor McElderry, what's your cutoff here? What's your hard stop?
2:30, I'm in good shape.
Okay, well, let's maybe let's keep going then, and then keep an eye here on the clock for you. So 28?
Yes, this comment was, and I think we touched on this a little bit at the last meeting as well, that while the plan speaks to open space protection, there is not, beyond flood hazard areas and airport protection zones, there are not specific areas on the future land use map that are identified for future open space. I think we talked about this and just the difficulty of that at this whole town comp plan level, but that's why there are so many instances of talking about open space and private development, and what those considerations should be as part of the development review
Makes
process.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And your recommendation would be no edit here, no change? Okay. Any questions from council?
Nope.
All right, 29, trail and planting, private property.
That was just me. I had asked Jared about this in between writing this concern and now, and I had said the Midland Trace Trail is mentioned a few times. What financial commitment is this saying we are making by saying that we've become a partner in the Midland Trace Trail? It was explained to me that there's no, that we're not trying to buy, that some, I don't know, was it a foundation had already started procuring land, and that it was supposed to be
sure
not a
it's a-
financial commitment?
I'm sure it's a state.
There is a private foundation that's been working with the Parks Department. I think Jared put that in maybe an update that he did in the fall, that's procuring land along the trail to do the expansion, but it
Right.
isn't currently, as I understand it, any financial commitment that we've made.
So the only thing I was saying is, could we note that it, so that someone reading it isn't like, oh, great, now they're putting a path up north and we can't even get one on Oak Street. So that was just.
Coming, it's coming,
It is coming.
slowly but surely. And
It's
it's
doing
pretty.
really well too, so good job, you two.
It's pretty.
So
Sorry.
that was my consideration when I read it and wrote it down, was like, hey, this sounds like we're doing a financial commitment, and could we notate that there's a private foundation?
I don't see anything in here that says,
It's mentioned multiple times, so I don't know.
well, I'm looking here, I'm gonna push back on this one.
Okay.
I think you just leave it as is.
Okay.
And if if future administrations wanna make financial commitments to add it, then so be it. I mean, I'm not one to say no to trails.
This was not.
Not a big
If
issue.
if you look at what it's under, it was I had a section that was just like, are we good with this direction?
Oh, I'm personally fine with it. I think it's fine, but that's me. I don't see anything in here that gives me pause for concern that we're committing future groups to consider it.
I would be, I would not be against a sentence that says in the current time, a foundation is working to support this financially. I don't know, or however you say it, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if that's still the case, is it?
Well, so it says.
Jared said
the-
it at a meeting.
Well, I
The
think-
Midland Trace Trail, which begins in Hamilton County, is planned to cross through Zionsville north of State Road 32, traveling through rural areas before reaching Lebanon to the west. While formal construction has not yet begun within Zionsville's corporate limits, several segments have already been completed in nearby Westfield. I guess when I read that, I think that's just a very informative statement.
So my financial mind goes to, it hasn't gotten here yet, but we're mentioning the comprehensive plan, so we must be about to start embarking on.
I didn't
funding
read it,
that.
I didn't read it that way at
I
all.
didn't read it that way at all.
Right, but.
Maybe the sentence, though, above, where it says Eagle Creek and Little Eagle Creek corridors, because it says in addition to municipal parks, additional, maybe we could say additional parks and recreation assets include, but it's additional assets, and I think it's talking about, you see that language?
Yeah.
Is this also a scenario, though, where if we're gonna go secure some dollars, that we need to kind of have it called out?
Do we even, I'd just say, do we even need to have it in there?
I
think it's for that reason.
I think it's in there to be able to get money, like they had said.
And that if development would progress north and be adjacent to this, I think
have
the
to add
town
on.
would, like, at a minimum, easement dedicated as part of that. The intent is not to put the town in any spot for a financial commitment. It's
It's just
just
simply saying it's out there,
that.
it's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
We
mentioned a
drew a
couple
line
of
on a map
times in the
and,
document.
I mean, the land use map has suggestions that it probably aren't gonna happen in our lifetime too, right? So, I mean, it's not like we're committed to all of this.
I hope this happens in our lifetime.
Yeah, but I mean, some of this stuff, a lot of property would have to be sold to turn it into what
All right.
what we.
It's not a hill I'm dying on, so.
Yeah,
More.
just to point out real quick, on page 160, goal number 3 is start planning for the Midland Trace Trail across northern Zionsville. I think that's perfectly appropriate. On page 160.
But what does that mean to
That
you?
does sound
No,
most
that's
active.
where I felt like it meant that we were starting to look for assets to do it. That's where I got money in my head. But,
Well,
I
I do-
mean, we do approach things differently. You
Yeah, but
approach it
planning-
legally, I
planning-
approach it financially.
do-
Planning could be Jared including it in his 5-year master plan, which we,
It's in there,
could
I
be-
believe.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, on page 182, it references connecting it with Carpenter Nature Preserve. On page 212, in the transportation section, it does list short-term actions, launch preliminary planning for Midland Trace Trail. So, I mean, it's listed, 6 times in here, and
Some feel more actionable than others.
I felt like it was actionable and we were gonna have to come up with money for it. That's where I felt it.
I don't feel that need that we must come up for money with it. It's just an objective, right? Goal number 3, continue to develop the pathway network. And of course, one of those would be start developing the Midway Trace Trail. I think it's totally fine. I just don't want to remove it because I really want the
No, I
trail to
don't
happen.
wanna remove it. I
And I
never
mean,
wanted to remove it.
if-
I wanted to add to the explanation. I
What?
wanted to say,
well, I think if
this
you,
is currently a parks-driven project with a foundation, being the financier, I don't know.
well, it's also in transportation, so I do think the idea of keeping it in here, it's both listed for transportation purposes and for parks purposes. So, I mean, I tend to agree with Counselor Norris. I'm okay as it is. I don't think, nothing that I've read here really gives me the impression that we're, tied to funding.
Like, unlike the Z-Works thing, where I could see where there's some ambiguity there, where somebody could say, well, you said in your comp plan you're gonna support Z-Works. I don't get the same vibe.
So
on this.
I feel like you're hearing me say I want it out, and I don't want it out. I wanted the financial implication of it
Well, I think,
more spelled out.
I think you're reading a financial implication into it, and we're not hearing it, is where I
Right.
think, the disconnect is.
That's what I'm not saying,
I don't
take
see
it
it.
out.
I
I
don't-
never said take it
Yeah.
out. I was more trying to make sure that people don't say, wait, why are we gonna put another trail in? We need to do X, Y, and Z instead. So I was just trying to be like, currently, this is being supported by the Parks Department and a foundation. I mean, I don't know.
I would say, this is like, it's the next big 4, right? And
Yeah.
that there was a big 4 trail master plan. The town was more active in some of those segments than others. Some were developer-driven. There's other communities that are working on pieces too. So I think it's just trying to elevate the kind of visibility of that long-term.
Okay.
I think even having it in here helps to, and I know you're not saying pull it out, but I think, as development does, to your point, occur up there, town staff's aware, it's in the comprehensive plan, developers are aware, and then, to your point, maybe some of it is developer-supported and developer-driven, so. Yeah, I'm good. Anybody else got any comments on 29, or are we good to move on to 30?
Oh, good.
All right, 30 it is. In reviewing the land map use, the only parks shown are those that already exist, and then this goes in, Adam, what do you have here?
Okay, yeah, and again, this overlaps a little bit with where we were earlier. One of the specific notes was regarding the Perry Township Fire Department property, and the opportunity for that to be a potential future park. The other thing I will note is we did end up adding the map on page 111, which comes from the parks plan. Again, in that we're a little hesitant to specifically call out open space on private properties outside of floodplain areas. But the parks plan did start to emphasize some of those areas of high ecological value, so we thought a cross-reference was appropriate.
I think the reason I brought up the Perry Township Volunteer Fire Department is that the land has been transferred to us, I believe. And there's one area that's right where I think the Ronald Reagan is going to come in, where I might not have the map perfectly in my brain, but the smaller land area that the Perry Township Fire Department transferred to the town, that's where I was thinking, if one of the comments was that we have no parks in Perry, and it's gonna be built on with the Ronald Reagan, we could have some sort of
small playground, park area, whatever, for Perry for the long-term future. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is if we don't make a plan toward that, I believe the fire department is going to sell it and put funds toward the new firehouse. And there's just a part of me, it's like you can't grow land, but we can grow funds from something else.
I think location matters
Yeah.
with regards to your comments. And, you know, Perry Township's very expansive, and I think there's a lot of great opportunity out there for parks. I don't know that this particular piece of property that we own is a park piece.
Okay.
And I think that's how I would look at that aspect of this particular piece, or any of the 3 pieces of Perry Township land for the fire department. But that's just my interpretation based on knowing a little bit about Perry Township.
I'll just say, obviously, this is something that changed over the course of the process.
Yeah.
So if we need to make a change, we're happy to do so, just looking for direction.
I don't live in Perry. I don't have a vested interest in there. I just, for what has transferred since this project began, it is a difference than when the comp planning began, because now the volunteer fire department is disbanding. We are acquiring, while we have acquired that land, it is a chance to call it open space and do something with it later. But if we let it move forward, we can't swap land with anybody. We can't, we end up having to buy, and it's just a consideration.
Sarah, does that tie our hands, though, if we put it in here, that it's like all of a sudden we're saying it's, and we want to sell it or do something else with it, and all of a sudden it's like, no, that's parkland or that's open
I
space?
would think if we end up wanting to sell it or we need to finance something, the council would rezone it. Is
Yeah.
that wrong? But if we do nothing, and it's totally fine if we do nothing, it does not have to be my way, but just knowing that there are 2 properties that were transferred to the fire department, and we leave the big one so that they can sell and finance their firehouse, so that they do have an avenue to trade it for money. But if we have them do both, then we're back to trying to find open space in Perry eventually. So, I mean, it's fine what we do. I'm just, when I read the comprehensive plan, I wrote down notes on, this is the section up where I was like, should we consider something different?
I think it's a great point to point out. Things have changed. But again, I think as Perry Township develops, there's gonna be other opportunities, and we talked about it earlier with, land that's not really usable in certain ways, that there will be developments and projects that have property that's not developable the same way, and therefore they could be used for parks, whether it's a private development or whether it's something that, some kind of partnership down the road. And again, I just don't see these particular pieces or parcels being,
Park-like? Okay. You're more familiar with that area of our town, and you represent them. So it was literally just a thing to ponder on this part of the list.
I'm also pretty sure, and I'm looking at the Parks 5-year plan that we passed a couple years ago, I'm pretty sure it calls out that there will be opportunities to develop parks in Perry. That's a priority. Doesn't say where, but to your point, like when appropriate or when an opportunity arises, we should take advantage of it. Yeah.
So Adam, your recommendation there on 30? Including and not limited to no change?
Yeah, I think it's either no change or we can include language and update the map to, suggest or encourage some level of park development on that property.
I mean, I'm good to leave it alone unless there's somebody dying on a hill here.
Not bad.
All right, let's go to 31. Sustainability planned element. Who was that? If no one, we'll leave it out and move on to 32. Is that fair? All right.
I don't.
So let's
I don't
leave
even know what a sustainability
leave the
plan is.
sustainability plan out. Go to page, or go to number 32.
That was just me asking to verify the number because we've had firefighters retire, get hurt, and added. So I wasn't sure if that was a correct number or not, and he said he got it from the fire department, so that was fine with me.
Okay.
Number 33 was something I brought up before, where I feel like to keep this, I thought the point of the comp plan was to be as current as we could be the date it's, I guess, published, approved, whatever word you want to use there. And because of that, we do have current development approvals coming forward, which do impact our mapping. And I think on page 74, I wondered if we should have a neighborhood act center at the Maple Lane development. I don't think it was in there. And his answer was based on property tax classifications. So he's saying it's already outdated. But I thought, well, we're still here, so why would we not add at least that?
Yeah, if I may, just a couple things. The map on page 49 is existing land use, and that's based on property tax classifications, which tend to be a year old, plus then, you know, you'll approve a rezoning or a subdivision plat, but that doesn't change the tax classification until the actual house is built. So I will acknowledge there is certainly a gap there, especially in a community that's, you know, seeing as much development interest and potential change as you. I think we talked about this last time. If we're happy to include an additional note or even a table that says, look, here's some major development projects, I'd selfishly like to stay away from, you know, every minor subdivision that's 3 or 4 lots or something. But if we need to say, look, this doesn't include Wild Air, Bradley Ridge, and the list is longer than that.
And I think we agreed last time that that works for me.
Okay.
It's just a one-pager on what's already approved and coming, just to keep it current. Otherwise, we're pretty dated the day we publish. I guess I'll just keep going here. On page number.
Well, so on 30, so I guess the question then on 33 is you just want a page in there that shows the developments that have been approved and they're not online?
Yes. What is already known to be coming, just developments that have been approved. Because there's like 4 of them not in the mapping.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't, we can do it, I guess, if you want, but I guess I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, whether it's in the mapping or not, they've already been approved, so it's not like they're gonna bulldoze Wild Air now and redo it because
No,
we
I know,
put
but
something
it
in
makes
there.
it less dated, or if we're trying to have a comp plan that, I mean, we have like 4 substantial areas not on the maps.
We did go back, and I will apologize, I don't remember exactly what round of edits is what, add some shading, there's the horizontal lines on several of the areas of the map on 49, again, that get to Wild Air, Union, Woodlands, Bradley Ridge, Promontory, the farm as well. But again, I'm happy to include some additional there. I don't think it hurts to say, you know, we have upwards
Gotta stop
of
somewhere. I get that.
1,000+ units that have been entitled through a zoning process that aren't built yet.
Yeah, that's all.
More than 1,000.
Do you guys, is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I like it because, I mean, if anything, we have a lot of demographic data in here as well. Like, here's the population and here's this and that, and we already know there's a lot coming, so why not acknowledge that already?
Yeah.
So you would put in a page that says, essentially, the answer is 2,112. So you would put in a page that says there's over 2,000 units that are not Okay.
I don't know if it's a page, but I think it could be
Well, no,
in your
that's what-
We just
demographics.
add a note.
Okay.
Or you could have a separate little map of just where things have already, like a little map that has
Either way.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's
Yeah.
actually shown on there right now. We can
Okay.
just add some keynotes
Okay.
to summarize that.
Yeah, that's it. It's over 2,100 with Woodlands, Bradley Ridge, Promontory, Adler, Russell Oaks, Wild Air. I guess you could take out the farm, because that's already out online.
Epcon.
And then the Epcon one at 362.
Oh, Epcon, yeah.
So, yeah, probably closer to 1,700.
Okay. The next one is, I just wanted, it was a thing to ponder. It said, when we say new developments on well and septic systems should be designed to allow for future water and sewer connections. Is this something specific that we're already requiring? Is this specified where it should happen on all rural?
It's the law.
Yeah,
Whenever you extend sewer utility services, right, aren't you required, if the town requires you, you have to tie in?
There are rules that govern that, yes.
And there are opportunities for waivers too. I think the intent of this was that, as maybe minor subdivisions or smaller developments come in that would be served by well and septic, that as part of the development review process, considering either right-of-way or easements so that those developments don't become a barrier to extension of town utilities into the future, and that, now it's.
basically that is just saying allow for easements, even if you're on, okay. I think that was my question. What exactly is specified that needs to happen? So it just seemed like it needed to be a little more specific, like we're looking for easements. And then it's clearer. Unless we were trying to avoid being straight.
No.
Page 59, accessory dwelling units. I didn't exactly feel like this was clear. There were a couple times that it mentions accessory dwelling units. It's mentioned in mixed residential secondary uses, but not conventional or rural or equestrian. And I thought, did we just pass something where accessory dwelling, did the plan not discuss it? The plan commission not discuss that?
We don't
rural-
we don't have anything specific to accessory dwelling units.
For rural?
It was presented, or at least introduced at one point.
Yeah.
Asked if we wanted to consider that, along with a few other items that was specific to the form-based code and items from the previous administration, so we have not moved forward with it.
Okay, I heard in one of the many meetings that I listened from at home for plan, they were discussing accessory barns being able to be bigger or standalone, but I didn't know if it had gone anywhere, yeah?
Yeah.
Anything on page 59 referencing this?
I just want to make a little bit of a distinction between an accessory dwelling unit, so that would be,
Like random other room?
right,
Okay.
either as a detached structure, it can be attached, it can be the apartment above the garage, and then just accessory structure, which is just a detached garage without a living space or a barn or some of that. So the accessory dwelling unit we listed, yes, as a potential secondary use in the mixed residential areas. The discussion on page 70 is about just accessory structures in the ag areas. So a lot
Therein
of
lies the
times the
difference.
zoning says you can't have an accessory structure bigger than your primary structure.
Right.
But what we talked about was in a lot of instances, the barn, stable, something is bigger than the house, but that's okay.
Yes, okay. I had just said about commercial and industrial development. I said, we're trying to increase that. Is there anywhere else we can do it? Now, I wrote that in December, and I do have concerns as I've been sitting here from our last meeting where I felt like we were pulling back from that a little bit in a couple of places. So I just wanted to, I guess, voice that I wanted the comprehensive plan process to increase our commercial base. And so, based on our last meeting, I was uncomfortable with just signing off on everything we did. But I've now heard we're going to vote on it anyway when we do this in a meeting, because this is not a voting meeting. I guess I just wanted to express that I have concerns that I felt like we were undoing some of the work, a lot of the work that had been done, and some of it was commercial-based. So back in December, I was writing, is there a way to increase land use mix more for commercial? So that is just a thing to ponder that I had written down in December. So there's no action on that. These are, again, my thoughts that somehow made it into the comments for you all to read. The next one we
I want
already
to back
have.
up. I
Yeah.
agree with this, and I do think we've tried to carve out places where, particularly around the, I think we've done a pretty decent job of trying to earmark places where commercial development can and should happen. And, you know, we got a long way to go, to your
Well,
point.
we've taken 2 of them back, I think.
The activity centers?
Yeah.
Keep in mind also that the Michigan Road overlay allows for commercial up to 400 feet, so there's gonna be stuff on here that doesn't show up as red or something like that could easily become commercial at some point because of the overlay.
I need to have clarity on that. Is our comprehensive plan overriding the Michigan Road overlay, or is the Michigan Road overlay still on it? Because in the notation, it didn't say that continued to be applicable.
Michigan
it-
Road overlay is a statute.
Yeah, it's adopted zoning, so this does
Okay.
not override that,
Okay.
no.
Well, I guess while we're,
Also, we did it all on 32 where it was orange and striped. We moved that all to purple as well. So I think we put in even more commercial up there.
Yeah, that's good.
sticking along the lines of this, number 35, and understanding there are not, we do not have an ordinance around accessory dwelling units, ADUs. It's been discussed with council leadership that we would not modify, but essentially enact an ordinance that says that currently in the town of Zionsville, there's not a permitted land use or permitted or approved land use for large-scale wind or solar. We have not done that yet. Candidly, I would like to see that somewhere in here that says that we do not have a permitted land use, a permitted or approved land use for large-scale wind and solar. And then obviously Heather and I will work on the ordinance for that. Are there any objections from counselors to include something like that?
Not at all. I mean,
I mean,
particularly since we're going to do it
thinking
anyway.
In perpetuity, we would never want to have any.
I mean, I think it's, having gone through a rezone request for a solar farm in 2021, I think it was pretty clear to me then, and basically, I would say even the sentiments that's reverberated throughout the county, countywide, that large-scale wind and solar is not something that, people are too keen on.
I'm probably in the
So,
minority, so I
Yeah.
won't fight that, but I do think that those are alternative energy sources that are clean, and I think they've been demonized in some circles beyond what is probably reasonable, but I just, again, we're gonna revisit that. The good thing about this plan, even as we look at the land use, like, we're not gonna go 20 years again, hopefully, before we revise this, so nothing is permanent.
Yeah, and it's a guidepost. I mean, I would say, again, the reality is, like, somebody, 4 years from now, if there's a new council, comes in here and they feel like the council's more amenable to certain types of things, they're certainly gonna, come in with whatever they need to. So
I understand.
I do think that, I'd like to see that, unless there's an objection that would keep the comprehensive plan from moving forward, I'd like to see that in there.
Okay with that?
Actually, I'm okay with that because we had been meeting, I don't know when, maybe a year or 2 ago about some sort of guidance on wind and solar. And it was advised at that point that we needed something that said it was not a favorable idea to us. Isn't that what they had told us? We needed some sort of wording, and we don't have
We
any?
just haven't done it yet.
Well, there
Right,
were,
we haven't done it, so,
yeah, what was previously put together was specifics around what the town would consider and would not consider. And I think the general feel was, you know, when you put out, here's what we will consider, that's what you're going to get.
right.
As opposed to just saying, listen, we're currently not open for
Right.
business there. So,
I think, that's why I like it.
yeah, perfect, thank you.
So just to wrap 35 too, I mean, again, we didn't come back to fully address a comprehensive strategy or thought around accessory dwelling units. I think we're opening Pandora's box by putting it as a secondary use in a mixed residential area. And I'm even looking at these maps, like, I don't know if it makes sense there or anywhere else, but I think anything we do around ADUs should be consistent within the whole town, not just kind of saying, in mixed residential units, this is where it might work. There are places in, you know, other places where it's the left like conventional subdivisions. Maybe that might even be a better place to have one. So I just feel like by putting it here, I think it's something that should be an actionable thing that we address town-wide, moving later, because
Completely agree. I completely agree.
I think that's why I wrote this. I was like, whoa, why are we talking about this and we don't really know what we're doing?
yeah, I mean, not to say there won't ever be one, but like to say it's here and not here, it may make better sense to be somewhere else and not somewhere with our townhomes.
Yep.
Well, and as the generations are living longer, we are starting to have more of a shift where people are having to take care of their parents and their children at the same time. So I don't think it should be something that we're against, but it should be something that should be weighed and considered and outlined rather than mentioned with no parameters.
Yep.
And then it starts the furor for moving forward with somebody having an ADU.
Yeah, let's just make sure we're putting them in the right places with some guardrails.
So put that on our action list.
Got it.
All right, number 36.
Oh, is it still me?
Well, I think we touched on 36.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
touched on
37.
Okay, 37,
And we did.
Yep.
38.
I just said, knowing we were looking at utilities, this utility statement's still correct. So remember, this was pre-vote for the North Utilities. I don't even know what it says on that page, but that was,
Water utility extensions, because Zionsville does not control sewer and water service to key employment areas near the airport along State Road 32 and west of I-65. The town's ability to extend utilities is limited. The South Village is largely served by town sewer infrastructure and Citizens Energy Group water, though upgrades may be necessary to support desired investments. I mean, I think
They're all
that's,
factual.
I don't think anything has changed.
I think it's pretty,
Yeah, it's factual.
I'm good with that.
Because nothing changed,
yeah.
so we're good on that one.
okay, and then, just for clarity, John, are we still calling the area south of Sycamore South Village, or are we calling it the south end of the village? Didn't you flip on that or change that wording? I don't think there's an official. Because it's capitalized, so that's the only reason I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean,
That's another error.
I would say this, I think there's, you know,
South end of the village?
I would go back to the discussion we ended with last
Yeah.
time. South Village is referenced a lot in here. And again, understanding the intent of what we did when we voted down the South Village proposal was that we would allow current owners or developers to come to the town with projects on each individual site. So I guess if we're removing South Village from the comprehensive plan, then why wouldn't we remove the language of
Yeah,
South Village
You can't
in
call
other
it
areas?
South Village capitalized,
Right.
yeah. It needs to be the south end of the village, the south side of the village.
How about land located south of the village? And then make that
Well,
change.
they're trying to make it part of the village, so I think it needs to be the south end of the village.
I would just put a parameter of
Down-
demarcations, because south of the village could be anything.
Down to the cemetery? Or,
Well, I'm just saying, it could be, you
I
know,
think south end of the village, or south end of the village.
but to me, south end of the village is like where the parking lot is at the Friendly. That's the
Yeah,
current south end of the village. This is not, this is undeveloped property that's not yet part
Well,
of the
we've
village.
got Bubs and we've got the businesses across, I think they would consider themselves village. And I do know that there was a push from the village residents to make sure that the road between Sycamore and 106th is named South Main Street, not Zionsville Road. So I think it is all intents and purposes to consider that part so that we do support those businesses that are on South Main Street. So if you want to call it South Main Street,
Well, I mean, I think there's a process to go through renaming a road.
right, when we tear up the road and make it change. That's why I'm not saying South Main Street for sure. I was saying south end of the village, but
Can we,
What if you just
can
said
we say
north of
south of the
106th
creek?
Street?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, sorry, Brett.
No, I'm just trying to think, like, if I'm not trying to exclude anyone, but if it's 106th Street north to Sycamore, like that, whatever you
I
want to call
honestly
it.
don't care what we call it, but we can't call it South Village
agree.
with two capitalized letters.
Understood.
Maybe
If we
they
say
can
south
weigh
of the, I mean, are we talking generally south of the creek?
We're talking about down to the cemetery.
Not even south of the creek, really.
I am so lost right now. Can we put a pin in this real quick, guys?
Yeah.
Let's just think, okay. So the issue here is that we've capitalized South Village throughout this document.
Yes.
And it is to name what I would colloquially refer to it as the area south of Eagle Creek, between Eagle Creek and what I would consider probably, I wouldn't say as far as 96th Street, but I would say probably the cemetery
To the cemetery.
or the public house.
Or the trailhead.
Yeah, okay. Any of those sorts, right? I
Yes.
think the consensus is that they want to remove reference to the South Village.
Yeah.
Again, I'm confused on what, I guess, do we want to remove any reference to South Village? Are we just calling it something else? Because I don't think that's a
Yeah.
good reason to just remove it if it's just naming a
Southern
location.
portion of the village.
Yeah, we need to go back, to your point, scrub South Village as a proper place name.
Right.
And refer to that area geographically with some landmarks, but not.
Oh, yeah, old 106th, I don't know.
I don't even know what,
I got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're the professional.
I think you could even remove south. Just say the village is largely served by town sewer infrastructure and Citizens Energy Group water. And, I mean, if the purpose and the intent is to make sure, though upgrades may be necessary to support desired investment, and that may be something like we've talked about before, chasing money, the intent of chasing money, I think you could simply say the village is largely served and be accurate in that statement.
But I think there are other places in the document where it references it that aren't as,
I agree 100%
Yeah.
that removing it there is perfectly fine. I think we've wiggled our way out of that particular page, just talking about South Village, generally speaking.
Yes, that's fine.
I don't know how many times it is referenced, but it's a few.
Once.
I was gonna say, I'm
Oh,
saying-
Justin, thank you. Justin Haig, Deputy Mayor in the audience, just pointed out, it's actually just noted once, guys.
That's
So-
why I just.
Where
pointed
we
it out.
are,
It's
yeah.
on page 166 only.
So just take out the word south. There you go.
Yeah.
Boom, done.
Will do.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay.
Should have stood up.
He is standing.
Wait,
Oh, jeez.
Jeez, who just said that?
That was mean.
Wow.
Statement.
I'm a short king,
New
too.
amendment-based districts.
All right, so then we're on to,
I think we're on 39. Okay.
okay,
New or amended base districts for zoning versus PUD. I said, what does this entail? Is this a call for the ordinance change? So I wanted you to put that on that page that you were gonna,
Yep.
right, thank you. And then,
so you wanted what? I'm sorry, we
so
can't
that's
just
a-
go right through this, like, we need
no,
to
no,
know
no,
what
so
changes.
that's what I was gonna say. So, and then we need to discuss it because on page 166, it says, it talks about switching from PUD to amended base districts.
Okay, I'll just read it. I'll read it. Zoning and subdivision control ordinances are critical tools for implementing the comprehensive plan. At Creekside Corporate Park, a planning and development district provided a tailored framework for desired outcomes. Future updates to the zoning ordinances should ensure that new projects meet community expectations while providing a predictable process for landowners and developers. This could be accomplished through new or amended base districts rather than a PUD ordinance.
I mean, when you read that, I would say that's correct.
That is, yeah, it could be,
It could be accomplished through new or amended base districts rather than a PUD, but we're also not taking PUDs off the table.
Okay, that's, my question was just, is this a call for an ordinance change if we were trying to take PUDs off the table?
I don't read that as an
If it-
attempt to take PUDs off the table.
Okay.
And that was not the intent. to-
Okay.
I mean, we certainly heard concerns about PUDs through this process. We did not want to remove them, but if they're, understanding some of those concerns, changes to base districts or creating new districts to say we would allow for the, rezone to this, and then the town's developing the standards instead of a PUD. That's it.
Perfect. All right, moving on to number 40.
I was asking for if we have links, and since this is going to be an electronic version published, if we could put links to the sidewalk safety, like if we could make a sidewalk safety concern link, because that's mentioned in the document. If we had some way of, people have asked me, if I have a bad sidewalk, how do I take care of it? And I thought, well, okay, because it's mentioned in here somewhere. I'm so sorry, I didn't write a page number down. But also, the wayfinding plan these were things that, we had a front page to our review, and in that front page, Mike Dale said, these are the items that are not overridden by this new comprehensive plan, so they supersede, so we have to keep track of those as well, I think, so we don't wipe the slate clean. I thought, why don't we have a link to the 2016 Strategic Trails Implementation Plan and the 5-year Parks and Rec Master Plan, because it was mentioned as being maintained and amendments in the resolution incorporated as the supplements per Mike Dale. So my point was, if Mike Dale told me that those are now also part of the comprehensive plan, and this is electronic, it would be a nice link at the end that you could, if you're gonna review the comp plan, then you should be able to review the parts that go with it.
So are they part of the comprehensive plan?
So, right now, on the town's website, there is a page for the comprehensive plan, and it says these are all the amendments to the comprehensive plan. We raised the issue or asked the question, if there are elements that you want to maintain as amendments to the comprehensive plan, that should be referenced in the adopting resolution. I will also say there's some things listed on there that I don't think need to be an amendment to the comprehensive plan, like your road impact fee study, like is listed on that page, but it's standalone. You're covered whether that's a comp plan reference or not. I know, again, same thing with like the 5-year Parks and Rec plan. You've adopted that independently. It doesn't necessarily need to be a comprehensive plan amendment. I know there was some specificity in the 2016 Strategic Trails Implementation Plan that wasn't, that isn't in the comp plan, but I will also say I know there is a little bit of an inherent conflict in there.
There is.
In that and I'm getting a little off topic, so I apologize, but specific to Trail Long Eagle Creek.
Right.
And we pulled some of that out. So we're happy to add hyperlinks.
Yeah,
We can do that.
that's all I was thinking, because when I am asked to vote on it, it says that these are amendments to it. I just wanted to make sure we all know that even though you think this is the total package, there are 2 or 3 things that still apply.
So I think if there's items that are referenced in the comprehensive plan, then I would agree with Counselor Sampson. Those should have some hyperlink or something electronically. But, in your point, if it's, if road impact fee is not listed in the comprehensive plan, we don't need a hyperlink to road impact fee. But if,
It is listed in the comprehensive plan.
yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, what is listed in there is
Yeah.
what hyperlinks you should have.
Okay.
If there's a list of amendments on here that aren't in the plan, we don't need those in here.
Okay. And the other thing I'll just say, obviously, we're happy to create that things change, you update
Right.
one plan and create a new link or whatever. So one of the reasons we tend to be conservative on the hyperlink side is they get broken and then the plan looks outdated.
Right.
We're happy to include that.
I would just say that as often as you guys have historically amended incremental plans into your comprehensive plan, these hyperlinks will be very unhelpful in just a few years.
So they're irrelevant.
It will be very difficult. We would.
Is there a
we see
way to
most
reference
communities-
it instead of hyperlink it even?
We
Like this
just-
can
we
be
can
found at this
reference it.
point?
I would just say the best thing you can do to make those very relevant is to keep a page on your website like you're doing that has all those things together. But as soon as you hyperlink it within this, in a couple of years, when you update your parks plan, it's gonna be outdated and
Right.
you're gonna be frustrated by it.
So rather than hyperlinking within the document, could you have it on that page that says, like addendum, this is the projects that are coming, and these are areas that would be helpful for explanations, and rather than make the whole.
What if the hyperlink just
Sure.
took you to the comprehensive plan page with
Heather's
all the
got it.
links that are already on the website?
Heather's got a good idea.
Adam and
here.
Corey, I was wondering, like, it may make more sense, because when the town posts the comprehensive plan after it's adopted, that the town administer a page that says documents referenced in the comprehensive plan. That way IT always is controlling those links and able to update it versus having it in the actual document itself. Does that make sense,
Okay.
Corey? I think that's what you were saying, so.
Yeah, I think that's fine. My point to ponder was, we bring up all these different documents that preclude or, explain, and it doesn't feel as complete without some, and the fact that there is an inconsistency in the 2016, I'm asking him, who wins in that discussion? Because we just said 2016 stands, so is it the oldest document? Do we need to put that on the list of actionable effects that have to take place because they don't match?
There's inherently always a situation that when you adopt any plan, something from a previous plan, whether it's a transportation issue or there's always a gap. And so
Right.
the most current
Most current.
is generally considered to
That's
be-
all you needed to say to me, because the
Because
way
this is
my
new.
constituent wants it is in the comprehensive plan.
This is the plan where you stitch all these things together and you look for those gaps
Okay.
that you are identifying exactly. So yes, this is, your most current here becomes the guiding.
All right, well, you said what I
Close.
wanted to hear, so I'm less concerned about it.
All right.
Great.
So we'll move on to 41. Actually, you know what, let's do this. We've got like a page and a half here. Counselor McElderry, what did you want to
Yeah.
bring up real quick?
Sure. Is there any way we can go to the map that, the updated map that Heather sent us? Do you know the one that's got your corrections in? Oh, perfect, there it is. Okay, so the one thing that two things that I wanted to bring up. South of 200 South, along the east side of Michigan Road, I had made the recommendation that we just have a commercial swatch there, just along the side of Michigan Road. And you've got it pointed out MR to C right there. It's been made apparent to me that that's already covered in the Michigan Road Overlay District. There's really no reason to make that red because commercial is allowed for up to 400 feet.
That's not entirely true.
Not entirely true?
No, it still has to have the underlying base zoning in effect. What the Michigan overlay does is it literally overlays additional requirements on that commercial space. Does that make sense? It's still gotta be zone commercial.
But we're not zoning anything here.
No, right, I think Adam's gonna.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so if we would change the map from mixed residential to commercial, then the map would support, or the comprehensive plan would generally support a rezone to commercial property here. So then whatever commercial district that is, I'm gonna say B1, right, has a list of uses that are permitted. The Michigan Road overlay goes on top of that, and for the most part says, actually, some of those uses aren't permitted because they're not appropriate along Michigan Road. and there's some maybe additional landscape and signage and things like that. But it would still require a rezone to a commercial district that permits that use at the base level.
Okay, with that said, I was going to suggest that we just go ahead and continue the division of that, as it's shown on here, MR to RR, and then no change where the conventional subdivision is, and just have that come all the way to Michigan Road, as opposed to having a strip of commercial, because I know, President Plunkett, you mentioned that you'd prefer not to have red on the map where there isn't already commercial, so,
Well, no, mine was for multifamily.
okay.
Yeah, to be clear, mine was for multifamily, not having multifamily where it doesn't currently exist.
So what are the thoughts of the council on just having the conventional subdivision come to Michigan Road as well as the estate rural residential come to Michigan Road, and just keep that line continuing?
I'm not really following what you're trying to do here, because if we're having commercial up on 421, and you're bringing conventional subdivision all the way to the backs of commercial, are you just trying to get rid of townhome possibility?
Sure, I'd love to get rid of townhomes up in the rural part of our town.
But then it doesn't, so for me, and I'm not an expert, but I felt like when it comes to planning, you're supposed to have transition areas. And I feel the same way, since I want you to stay here for when I say this. I want to talk again about the west side of town, because I think you and I are not seeing the same thing. And I respect what you're seeing, because you have people saying to you, keep this rural, keep this rural. I do. But I thought that we were supposed to have busy, less busy, rural when we look at zoning, that there's transition pieces between. If we bring conventional subdivision right up to business, there is no transition piece. And that's what I thought for good planning, which is why I think they did this in their process for 2 years, had a transition piece. And
There are many, many places where commercial abuts conventional subdivisions.
Okay.
I can point them out all over town, up and down Michigan Road. You don't have to have townhomes as a buffer between commercial and residential. I'm sure you can think of a few right now. You don't have to have them.
I'm trying to like mentally, so where I live, it's like Walgreens, and then it's apartments, and then it's duplexes, and then it's bigger homes, and then it's Hunt Club. So maybe that's where I'm coming from. I see that transition very naturally in our town, and I don't think people living in apartments are bad, or people living in duplexes are bad. I think of it as opportunity to put in a more affordable residence. And if we tuck them here and there, then we're helping people buy their first home.
And I don't disagree with you. Closer to town, that makes all the sense in the world.
This
You're
is
getting into a very
421.
rural.
It
This
is
is a
getting
very
closer to
rural
town.
area. Just drive up there. It's very rural, and what you're suggesting is we just keep extending townhomes up further and further north as a buffer to the east-west. I'm suggesting we don't want to continue to have townhomes going further and further north, because that's urban level density in rural areas. And let me just say this, Sarah, I can't remember a single time on this council where I've ever dictated or told you what I think the village should look like. I have voted in alignment with you on anything related to the village. I voted in alignment with President Plunkett when it came to Stonegate. I voted in alignment with Councilor Melton when it had to do with Perry Township. I feel like you're trying to dictate what the rural part of the town looks like when you are District 2. And I would just hope that you would respect that I meet with a lot of people over their kitchen table to talk to them about these things. You represent a different district, so you don't have the same interactions that I'm having. And these people have come to meeting after meeting stating that they want this area to remain rural. And you stand up as one counselor and say, no, I think it needs to be urban level density. And I would just suggest that this is an opportunity for you to listen to what the people are asking for, as opposed to just saying we need to just keep pushing urban density into the rural spaces.
But this is 421. This is a federal
That's why I'm saying commercial
level
can,
street, right? I mean, we're not talking about the rural inner part of our town, which I stand with. This is semis.
this is north of 300 South. So as soon as you go on Michigan Road, north of 300 South, what do you see? Do you see anything remotely urban or,
I see a lot of for sale signs. That's what I honestly see.
I don't. I don't.
The for sale signs
I
are
see a
there too.
Superfund site, I see a golf course, I see all kinds of stuff.
There's a golf course?
Or sorry, driving range.
Driving range,
Right.
There's a
Commercial
driving range.
use.
right there.
You don't
Right
think that those for sale
there.
signs have anything to do with the fact that we are not listening to the people that
No,
live
I
up
think
there?
it has to do with the farmers not farming this area anymore, and they want to retire.
And I am not suggesting it
On
can't be
their
developed.
sales.
At what point have I ever said you can't develop the space? I'm just saying, do we need multi-level townhomes?
No, I
In the
think we
rural
should
part of our
ask him
town.
to make them shorter. I think we should work with the developer who is bringing, I think, a decent product to our town and make it better.
So
But
I
I
think-
don't think we should say farmers can't sell their land.
I think there's a couple things
has
here.
said that?
There's a couple things to think through here, just to kind of hone this in. The first part of this discussion is considering the commercial aspect on 421. The second part of this considers some of the other land use changes at this particular intersection. I would say that this could very easily be a scenario where, as Heather mentioned from the beginning, we may just have, this may be a position where somebody's a yes on the comp plan and somebody's a no. Because I don't think we're going to be in a position where everybody's going to be congruent on every part of it, and
I'm not gonna let any procedural, like, aha or gotchas, like, dictate how the rest of this process is gonna go, right? Like, in my opinion.
I just have a clarifying question.
Like, for any proposed developments.
yeah.
Yeah, I do think this is
That's true.
unfortunate in that there's a proposal that's before us at our next meeting about this area. If this was a comp plan that we were getting to 6 months ago, then it wouldn't feel like it's, interfering with a proposal that's already in front of us. Or if it were 6 months later. That being said, I also believe that the Plan Commission and the staff report should have been taking into account the current comp plan and not this future comp plan when deciding on that. And I think that may well, if we voted on May 4th, this won't even be enacted yet. So
Right.
this is to some degree null and void because that may well go in anyway and may be passed anyway before we even pass the comp plan. And then the discussion really is it in alignment with the current comp plan, yes or no? Right? There's a lot of discussion there. But I do have a clarifying question on the map, because Adam, I read this to see, and I know this is a proposed piece, but I think it's important when you're making changes from last meeting where we marked up a bunch of map changes. Are those proposed, or is that now like, this is kind of what the latest version we would be voting on with those changes to the map?
So, yeah, I have not changed the underlying map. This was trying to record what I thought we,
Yes. But at
Agreed
some
on
point,
last
this would be overlaid into the actual map, if
Yes.
this is in fact what we all agree upon.
Yes.
But according to this overlay map then, which I know is not the official change yet, but for all intents and purposes it is, because that's what this council was asking for. But I can't tell, because it's very small. I see where you've moved this section along 421 from MR to C for commercial. And I think what Council McInerney is saying is maybe that doesn't need to be C, maybe it could just come off because there's an overlay district. But maybe now he's changing his mind after hearing that maybe we should probably do need to keep it commercial. But behind that, what I can't tell is, because there's another triangle box, which looks like it says MR to CS.
Yep.
Which would in fact be moving what he's already asking for. So it looks like it's already been indicated on this tool that you've given us. Does that make sense? Am I reading?
Yes,
Yeah.
the piece behind that would be a change from the mixed residential to conventional subdivision.
So you're suggesting this yellow would come to here,
Correct.
all according to this?
Yes.
Okay.
That was my understanding from the last meeting. So if I misunderstood, please let me know.
No, that was accurate.
I'm not saying it's misunderstood, but I'm saying there's a discussion that's happening
Yes.
here, and
It's
it's already
just
kind of
Tim's.
been, your view anyway, was that it was decided at the last meeting.
Yes.
And conventional subdivision does not have what you townhome.
Exactly.
That's correct.
So I would maybe say that I would agree with Adam. I think we thought the council had consensus around these changes, so that's why they were made today. I think people have slept on it, thought about it, thought it through, which is all appropriate. And so perhaps, Adam, what we could do is kind of work with anybody that has an alternative proposal, to send us that. And we're probably going to have to present some options, and there probably is going to have to be a vote on those options, just like we were talking about at the beginning. And then we're going to have public comment before that discussion. So that would be a great opportunity for constituents in that area to be able to, weigh in on what they think is appropriate, but maybe a couple changes. Because these changes were made, I am in agreement with Adam. We thought there was consensus.
That's what I thought, too.
I
That's what I was
think
confirming.
we started running out of time, and we all just kind of were like, oh, we're going to come back to this.
And I think we went back and forth on this area, and like I said, I created this because I wanted to make sure that we walked away with the proper understanding. But that doesn't mean we can't revisit it by any means. And again, if we need to create a couple options, 3 options, you tell me, and we can easily do that.
So Sarah, what are you recommending for that?
Well,
I just,
think
can I just get some clarification real quick?
Yeah.
Just before we go too much further there. The proposed changes here, Adam, takes mixed residential along 421, puts it into commercial. And then there's a proposal from mixed residential to conventional subdivision right behind that, right?
Yes.
And then no change on the remaining parcel to the east of there.
Correct.
Am I incorrect in that commercial, conventional subdivision, and, commercial and conventional subdivision, neither one of them allow for townhomes? I mean, I'm looking at them right here, and
I don't think so.
even the secondary uses.
I think that was the intention.
Conventional subdivision,
that
Correct.
was-
it's pretty much single-family detached
Right.
homes.
Right.
Community facilities,
Even the
religious
secondary use
institutions.
is not there.
No, no,
Yeah.
right.
So I guess
Okay.
Tim said, what is my angle? We started the meeting last time with, it's not on this map, but with B and C, I think, over in the west side. And, okay, thank you. And this business center and mixed residential, and we literally stripped the three, maybe 4 areas from what the comprehensive plan group worked on for 2 years. And so we started the meeting, and I was trying to be vocal that I wasn't comfortable taking everything away. I'm okay with a tweak or an area, like, that, do you remember, Tim? I was like, why don't you pick one of the 2 conventional subdivisions instead of both? And you said, nope. I did ask in the meeting if someone could tell me what's on the border, and then we had some voice that we shouldn't worry about the border. But then we went to the east border, and we worried about the border. So the inconsistencies didn't sit well with me. So I will say one of the people in the audience said that they heard me ask that, and they went ahead and provided me with what is happening in Whitestown on the west side. And I can pass this sheet down just so you're all aware of what I've been told. but where, okay, now they don't have their letters, so I'm gonna call them north, the north yellow square. If I'm reading this right, let me make sure I'm telling you the right thing. Okay, next to that is gonna be a mixed-use, commercial, office, high-density residential area. And then next to, the south, the middle yellow box, or the middle box, the south yellow box, is going to have, I'm trying to make sure I'm on the right road, so I'm not misleading you. It's going to have some R2, but mostly mixed-use PUD, commercial and residential. And there's like drawings of streets and, or I can pass that down so that you can look at it. But the point is, we're changing that back to rural again. And
It is rural right now. This is proposed.
yeah, I'm saying we're changing the map back
Changing the proposal.
to rural again.
Right.
What did I say wrong?
I thought you were saying that this was already a conventional subdivision.
Oh, no, I just meant the map, the map. It has CS to RR and CS to RR. So I was just saying, we're flipping the yellow back. And I feel like the point I just made before, and I know you're like, no, there's homes next to businesses. But now we're saying, if we consider the border, we've got mixed-use commercial office, high density across the street. I don't see the logic in putting constraints on there being a neighborhood right there versus a farm. And if there's a farm or a ranch or equestrian area there now, it doesn't have to automatically become commercial subdivision.
You want it to be a conventional subdivision?
conventional.
So that it serves as a buffer to Whitestown, is that what you're saying?
I want to take the work of 2 years of people that have met and
People have-
respect it.
The people that have met don't want that to be conventional subdivision. The
Then
people
how
that
did they
came and
come
put
to us with this
sticky note
proposal?
after sticky note on those flip charts at Hussey Mayfield, or the people that came to town hall to meet, and Adam was there. I mean, I heard every single table come back and say, please, 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 don't let these leapfrog. This is leapfrog, look at it. That's by definition. Yellow, skip over the top to yellow, skip over the top, like,
Well, that's why I said,
why do you want it to be conventional subdivision? What does that do for you that makes you feel better about our town?
I think where I was in this comprehensive plan review, when I reviewed it, it was, how do we move our town into the next decade? And where would we be okay with conventional subdivisions coming up? And where would we be okay with commercial properties? And where would we be okay with mixed-use places? And again, it doesn't have to start becoming that, but it's designating where we would accept it. And so I guess I just thought our borders would be where we would accept. And if the point of it is, and I know you made a comment that, I'm District 4, by the way, you made a comment that we're only supposed to vote the way our district votes.
No, I didn't say that. I say we listen to the counselors from their districts.
I
They tend to lead
absolutely
the way.
consider it.
Okay, so here's my take. If those were estate residential or rural, we're not talking about a huge difference here, right? We're talking about 1 house per acre versus 2 or 3 houses per acre. What you're making it sound like I want this to be nothing but a field. That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is it should be consistent with what we already have in our town. You are skipping over a rural or estate residential to get to a conventional subdivision, and then you're jumping up again and putting another conventional, that's leapfrog development. That's what we have all said, I think most of us have said, that's not what we're looking for. If you look everything to the east, it is estate residential. So I don't understand why you are so compelled to say, I really think we need a conventional subdivision right there, except to say that we need to have a bordering or a buffering community next to Whitestown. If that's the case, then we should be looking up and down the east and west borders of our community and changing everything to match what's next to it, and that makes no sense either. I brought up the fact that we have an innovation district that is right across from what is ag on the Westfield comprehensive plan, and everyone said, no, we want that innovation to come down. By your own argument, then that purple that's on the map should be changing to ag.
So for the record,
So-
I thought it did change. Did
No,
I hear
it's-
that wrong?
It's not even circled. It's not on here right now. but
Yeah,
the
it's not on here. Can we
South
flip
of
the map that way?
166th Street is a
Who's doing
purple
this? Are you doing
innovation. Right there.
Okay.
That remained purple. So if we're going to go by your argument, Westfield has decided that everything to the east of that is ag. So we need to leave that ag? Is that what you're suggesting?
I am telling you right now, when I was here, I didn't know what was changing and what wasn't changing because I thought this was all, like this funky triangle thing at the bottom of the screen. I thought that you had said you wanted to change the, did I hear that wrong? I thought you said you wanted to change that to match Westfield. Did I hear that wrong?
I do.
Okay,
But
this is
it
my
didn't get
point, and you're,
changed.
I know, but you're
So
being
here-
inconsistent.
So to be clear, on this airport, there is both purple and ag, okay? So that's what the stripes are in these different areas. So I think that's important to note. I also think it's important to consider, as we review the comprehensive plan, it's not just going forward, I believe, that, you know, things that we should consider. We should also consider what was done in the past. And part of the completion of Appaloosa Crossing and the permits that were allowed to be pulled there was based on the agreement that sewer lines would be continued to, across 300 to allow for commercial development on that north side, which is why you'll see on 300 and 421 that is a commercial developed property. At some point, and I'm not saying where or when, but at some point, this is no longer leapfrog development. At some point, it's the development that we know is going to happen on the north and the development that we know is happening on the south, meeting along 421. Again, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I would, when we talk about commercial development and developments that are outside, you know, are not consistent with current land use and whatnot, and referencing these things as leapfrog development, I think if you've got a commercial, if that part of 421, that sliver is labeled commercial, and literally the only thing you have to do is bore underneath the driveway to a neighborhood to reach a commercial property, that is not by definition leapfrog development. That is development that came from a commercial development south of there, and a utility from a commercial development south of there, and is being used for that particular area. So I think there's, you know, my definition of leapfrog development perhaps is different than, you know, the development that's, or the definition that's being laid out here. But I think specific to this conversation, a lot of things have taken place, but I do think it's important to note that around the airport, there is both the Innovation District, or Employment Flex, Office Innovation, whichever one it is, and agriculture on both the east and the west side of the airport. Because I know that was certainly part of what was discussed, and I know Sarah, or Councilor Sampson, to your point, there was the discussion around, is there a requirement for a buffer on the east side of Zionsville versus the west side, and so on and so forth. And Councilor McElderry, this is unique because your district is the only district on, that literally touches both the east and west side of Zionsville. So I certainly understand there's some uniqueness to this district.
And to be clear, I was only talking about leapfrog as it relates to this western border, not the eastern side.
Okay,
So
that's
the
fair.
two little.
That's fair.
The two little blocks of yellow, which, by the way, there is no sewer coming to that. Whitestown has no interest in serving it, and we have no sewer getting up there. So we're talking about making this a conventional subdivision when, boy, it could be a long, long, long time before we get sewers in that area. All the more reason that it remain a state residential.
Yeah, I guess it'd be important for council to convey what they interpreted in the last meeting. I was under the impression that it was going to go to rural estate residential, those two yellow blocks on the west side of Zionsville.
And Sarah, to your point, I
Is that
backed off
incorrect,
of-
Adam? Is that not the plan?
That was my understanding as
Yeah.
well. It's that I noted conventional subdivision to rural and estate
Yeah.
residential.
Correct.
I backed off of the innovation district because of the inconsistency. So I am remaining consistent. What I'm suggesting is you aren't, by saying that that needs to change to conventional subdivision to match what Whitestown's doing, but then you're not willing to change on the east side. So
I'm so sorry, I never spoke up on anything on the
you're
east
speaking
side.
up right now saying that needs to be conventional subdivision.
No, on the east side, I just said.
Yes,
I
everyone
didn't
decided
speak
that
on
that
that at
needed
all.
to remain.
I didn't speak on that. I just sat here.
Yeah, I think you
Why
guys are
did
talking
it-
about two different things. So the,
I'm just going back and forth on a
the
very
west,
small
the
map.
west side, the 2 blocks on the west side of town are being changed from conventional subdivision to or to rural estate residential. The quote-unquote discussion about having a buffer last time, non-issue. Those 2 yellow blocks on the left of that map up there are going to rural estate residential. On the right, however, towards the west side of town, that's the discussion that I believe we're centered on here. So we can leave the east side of town.
It's really not
I'm
a
sorry,
discussion,
we
though,
can leave the
Jason.
west side of town out of it and focus on the east side of town.
That's fine, that's fine.
So the only discussion is, Adam has already made the change, that the section that is in question, where Woodland may or may not have a proposal in front of us that may or may not pass. It looks like we've already changed that on this map to put in some commercial and to take commercial subdivision all the way over, and what gets eliminated is mixed residential. That's already marked up as we stand it. Now, if Sarah thinks that's a wrong move and she would like to see it changed back, then we need to have that
Yeah, I think that's my
discussion.
point, like, we did talk about this, we aren't allowed to vote on this, and at some point, it does become, and I recognize this, it becomes the person who talks the longest and the loudest that we ended on every topic.
Well, I think
And it's fine if everybody wants to have rural, but the west side of town where there's mixed use. I recognize I am one vote, but I am representing my people when I vote. And
I'm just trying to trying to get some movement. What I'm hearing Heather say is, this is one area we don't have consistency on.
Right.
And that we probably need a vote amongst the group to clarify.
So,
But
so
it's
per-
not gonna happen right now.
No, it is, right now. So here's what we're gonna do. On 421, the area that's marked mixed residential to commercial. It's currently mixed residential, and this modification is to take it to commercial, correct? So, am I allowed to say, raise your hand if you want it to be
So-
commercial, or
so-
like?
So let me just clarify. We're not taking a vote on the comprehensive plan final proposal. What we're trying to do is straw poll so that Adam can create a document that you can vote on each of these sections. So I think what President Plunga was thinking about doing is just each of these, do we have consensus that this is MR to RR? Do we have?
Yeah, those
like,
4 properties right there.
Just for the document. We're going to still take public comment. We're still going to go through this, and we may not have consensus, and we may have to have a formal vote.
Yeah.
Make sense? We just have to get something that you guys can actually vote
can
on,
you
or that
put
the
a
public can
picture
see.
of what's there currently versus the change you made? Because I think that might be, so all these boxes that are on there, can you
Yeah.
take them off or give me a side-by-side or like, so I know? it's-
So what it is this rightmost box
Yeah,
is yellow
Okay.
right now. So I think what we talked about was no change. The other 3 areas underneath all this pink that I've drawn is the mixed residential orange. So,
and commercial is allowed in mixed residential?
no.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so with that as a backdrop, we've got 4 pieces of property here, okay? And we're just gonna go east to west. The mixed residential to commercial. Raise your hand if you're okay with it going from mixed residential to commercial.
As opposed to.
It's mixed residential now to commercial, right here in front of us, if you like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you good, Burke?
I don't know, dude.
Well, there's at least 5 of us, so.
Okay.
At least 5 people, Adam, are okay with that MR to C on 421.
Freak out.
Okay? The mixed residential to rural estate residential, right there, as proposed here. Raise your hand if you're okay with that. Sarah, you're not?
Wait, where?
It's this one.
The one
Is this a
bordering
joke?
200.
The mixed residential to the rural estate residential at the top. We're literally going the area is the area.
Yeah, I will add that I think that I had multiple meetings making concessions that as long as we kept this rural estate residential, that some people didn't care what we did south of this. So
Right.
that's why yes.
Okay, so,
That is not part of what's being brought to us.
I don't know. But
I
that's
don't-
not
I
our-
don't
that's not-
know.
That's not our
I
issue.
just don't, I feel like we should be voting on that project before we're voting on.
well, no, you vote on the project as it complies with the current comprehensive plan.
that's what I mean.
Not the
Okay.
incoming comprehensive plan. All right, so this one right here,
Right.
right here. Mixed residential to rural estate residential. Raise your hand if you're okay with that. We have 4, 5 out of 5, so we're good there. Mixed residential to conventional subdivision, this little piece right here. Raise your hand if you're okay with that.
No.
So we have 3.
Should I
And
call
then no
Joe?
change here. Any change here? No change. So mixed residential to conventional subdivision. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to
That's
trip over
okay.
your purse there.
Should have not.
Mixed resident, where,
The little teeny sliver next to the yellow and bordered on the left by the commercial, that little
So
sliver.
then,
So then Joe needs to call in and give his vote. Actually, Joe wrote me. Let's see what he said.
he's talking about commercial.
Joe says, "I'm okay doing nothing. This is a plan. Developers can go for a rezone.
Wow.
So don't change." Does that count as a vote? It says I'm okay doing nothing?
I don't know.
I'm not getting involved
I know.
in any of this.
I don't,
I would say, if, to Jason's point, if what's before us, we're gonna have to vote on for Woodland, that's already come forward.
Right.
If that's really only to be viewed under the current comp plan, whether or not we like it or not, or it doesn't fit or doesn't fit, and this would be in the future state, meaning that may already come in, and then all we're talking about is nullified, because it's already done. If that weren't to pass, what would we want this to be? Does that make sense?
Well, I think,
'Cause,
before
in a
before
new-
you go there, Brad, I do think it's important just to get some clarity on this area. Since we did not get consensus from mixed residential to conventional subdivision, I think that should stay mixed residential. It's listed, the little sliver right there on the bottom.
Small triangle.
Where it's listed for mixed residential to conventional subdivision, we did not get a consensus to move to conventional subdivision. I think we're in a spot where I would say we go mixed residential to commercial on 421, mixed residential to rural estate on that top piece, mixed residential stays not to conventional subdivision in that little sliver, and then no change to the yellow.
Okay. This is just all happening really quickly, and it's significant changes. How far over is?
Right here, Brad, it's this right here.
I understand, dude, but how far over is we have a map that says, commercial. How far over is that?
400 feet.
No, that's
Oh,
more
I
than
thought
400
that's
feet.
what they said.
Adam, how far over is the red? 400 feet is the Michigan
That's the
overlay
overlay.
district.
No, but that's what we said when we were doing it.
It just looks a lot like, it looks more than 400 feet.
I mean, it's, if you look down to like, Appaloosa, it would be,
It's the same commercial. essentially the
Comparable
same
to
commercial
that.
Pieces, Appaloosa.
Okay, so in my mind, I should picture Appaloosa.
It's not drawn to scale,
I know, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
so it's okay, I promise.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I think Appaloosa, you're right.
Yes, so I'm just trying to figure out where it is, because this is gonna impact, there is a project before us, and I have to think through this. And again, if Jason, if your point was, which you said as you were up there, I think after you had asked for the vote on that sliver, which was, we're going to have to review the plan that's before us next time, based on the current comp plan, not this, because this won't be passed. Right? So if that's the case, and that passes, none of this matters if we change it, because that's what's going in, a PUD.
Correct.
So short of that, if that didn't pass, then I would want that sliver to be yellow.
You would want it to be conventional subdivision.
Yes.
Is that 4?
Because you're telling me that the proposal that we're gonna weigh on, at our next meeting has nothing to do with what I would prefer this to be down the road, and we should be weighing that against what's currently in the comp plan now.
That is a position I'm personally taking, Brad, if that helps. I'm not gonna let this comp plan and our back and forth get in the way of current proposals. I'm gonna follow what the comp plan is currently.
And even if it were the comp plan, if someone brings a PUD, you can always
Yeah.
consider it.
It's one of the 5 factors. Adam, you okay?
I feel like this is like a win for the area that wanted more rural without taking away all the work that the people working on the comp plan did with our paid-for planners. I feel like the rural people are getting back a piece of rural. We're keeping more commercial in the area, which is a true drive of mine. And the area behind it, I'm still okay with having a transition piece into conventional subdivision. I think it's kind of a win-win-win.
So then we keep it as commercial along 421, rural estate residential up top, mixed residential in that little sliver, and then conventional subdivision to the east.
I thought with Brad's vote, we had 4 for conventional in that sliver. He just said that his vote would be for yellow.
And just a couple comments too. I don't believe rural's getting anything back because we already know what's going into that area and it's gonna be the winery and everything else. So it's agritourism.
That's ag.
They're not getting it back, that's what's already there. I mean, we may have changed on the map, but it wasn't gonna change. Does that make sense? Like, we shouldn't have changed it knowing what's already going into there and what that landowner wants to do with their property. I believe that we're still getting commercial along 421, which, and even then the proposal before us has commercial along 421.
Yeah,
I don't know
but
that that
you have to
changes.
remember, winery, we've already had in town and it closed. So something could come behind it, and what we've done is say what comes behind it will be rural.
Someone could put a proposal in.
Yeah.
And then all we're saying is, in an ideal world, assuming that there's already a PUD in front of us, and we have to consider that on its own. That will be voted on before this plan is voted on. This plan would be voted on later, so that means the only change would be is if that doesn't pass. Then what would we want that area to be? And I think it's still not, the rural's not getting a win, it's still gonna be developed as a subdivision, conventional subdivision.
Where's
The
that
sliver.
last sentence?
The sliver is what he's talking about still. The
What do you mean the
sliver of
rural's
mixed
not getting
residential.
a win? I'm so confused. We
The
just
sliver.
changed from mixed, but we changed from mixed to rural. How is that not?
I get what you're saying in that space, but I feel like, and we talked about this last time, that landowner is already doing something. To your point, it could fail, but
Right.
that's what they're trying to do with their
That's all I
property.
mean. It's the same thing that you're saying. If something fails, this is what I want. So I'm saying if it fails, we've given it
No,
back
there's
to
a
rural.
difference. That's their
Oh.
business failing. This would be a failed vote of this body. That's different.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. We're going to have to vote on this one. It just feels like we are, or you are. I don't get a vote. So maybe, Adam, we would do one on that MR to see,
Yes.
like, one version and then another version. Does that make sense? And then we'll put them to a vote.
Sure.
When Joe is here, or, yeah.
Heather, won't we have already voted on the PUD proposal that's before us? So really, if that passes, then the comp plan should just align with what we just passed.
I think that's kind of the comment, like, if we've passed or failed that, then we will know if we need to protect that area from what you don't want the future to be. So it's kind of good to take the vote after the other
Yes.
vote, because then we have our knowledge. Thank you. Yes,
That's assuming we're ready to take a vote.
right,
on Monday.
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
We can always, yeah. Okay, cool. This has been a very productive meeting. Thank you. Are we?
You want to be done now? You don't want to go back to the
I'm
other?
just kind of like sitting here, kind of like, we're never gonna reach a consensus.
almost done.
And this is part of the 2 years that we spent working on this. A lot of work went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, gang, you tell me what you want to do. We got the page and a half left here, so.
I can punch
gosh, we
through
do?
3 or 4 of these. Okay.
41 to 50.
I
Skip
do
down to
have to run.
43.
So I'll let you guys finish up.
Skip down to 43. This was the must a building look like multiple buildings in the Village Business District. And it says that it's not in the Village Business District. So there we have 2 conflicting things. I don't know what to say about that. It conflicts. So the comprehensive plan said, the Village Business District zoning specifies if larger footprint buildings should look like multiple buildings on page 79 and 186.
So, again, I think, I would say this is one where the recommendation is a potential change to zoning.
Yeah.
And, yeah, because the intent of the recommendation is that if you're going to have a larger footprint building, it looks like more smaller buildings. And the Village Business District zoning right now has square footage limits, but it doesn't have an architectural requirement for like facade differentiation.
Right.
So this is one where, again, I think it would be on
Goes
that
on our
list
action
of,
list, yeah.
if you know, things to keep in mind.
Okay, great. Let me see, I can skip. I'm skipping rental limits. I'm skipping the sidewalk safety concerns because I've mentioned that before as a link that might be needed. It says that we should be doing infill development. I just wanted to point out that sometimes that means increases in density and that could concern people. Page 87, pumps brakes on housing but mentions apartments. Just points I was making to everybody.
I'm sorry, what number are you on?
49,
Okay.
number 50, just finding a way to encourage more agribusiness, which would be what we just did with trying to turn that back to ag and rural along 200.
So just real quick, again, so I know we've been here a while, but I want to get it right. So Adam has not provided any notes to these comments, and we're kind of rolling through them, so I don't know.
These were the ones I had written on I was just like, these are things I wanted counselors to read, and just, if something jumped out at them that, hey, yeah, that, we shouldn't have that in there. But otherwise, when I submitted these, I submitted them in note form, and then Adam kind of took some of them and said, yeah, what if we thought about these?
And you're rolling through them, and we're not.
I'm rolling through them because when Heather wrote these to us, she said, we're not going to do an extensive review on the last 14 of them, and I said there's like 3 or 4 that I wanted to mention. So the last one,
We're not making any changes to 46 through 55.
no,
All right.
except 55. 55 is on page 178, it says we should continue businesses should take advantage of our microloan program. We don't have a microloan program, that's through the Boone EDC, so that's just an incorrect statement. So that needs to be taken out, or directed to the Boone EDC. And I think the rest of them on that page were more like somewhat incorporated into other questions. So like, I think Adam took a few ideas and threw them up where they matched, and that's why we can pretty much fly through the rest of them.
Yeah, and I'll say specific to 55, I did go back and look at that, and yeah, I found a resolution by the RDC that I think kind of put it into that program, so that was an error on our side.
Okay. What's this back page then, Heather?
I don't even know what
On
that
page 107?
That was the specific comments that I kind of paraphrased and grouped into one of those open space ones we already discussed. I just wanted to provide the full
Yeah.
detail to you if you wanted to
These were.
look at them.
It all went back to tied back to that open space percentage requirement that some people wanted to see.
So I guess then, are we comfortable with where we are? And it sounds like the only modification that'll be vote on this one or this one is the area up there on 421. So,
Sounds like it to me.
so will there be two then draft comprehensive plans? We'll vote on one and,
Well, since we're not voting on the comprehensive plan on May 4th, we would just be voting on what we want to see in the final version. So we'll just take a vote on that specific item. And then for the May 16th meeting, whatever that end result of that vote would be included in the final comprehensive plan recommendations from the town council.
yeah, and I'll just reiterate to this council, I know this feels like pulling teeth, getting this stuff done up here. And to the public, thanks for hanging in there. I think we've said it time and time again, we got to make sure we get it right as we can. So, I mean, I feel like we're in a really good place here. I'm also, comfortable if we need to pump the brakes a little bit to get, if there's a requirement for more feedback or for requirement for more education, depending on where we are. I just want to make sure we're doing it right, so.
If we pumped the brakes on a vote on this for one meeting, or whatever the meeting following, it seems like we should be voting on the project on Monday, and then that would kind of decide if we needed to, or people's opinions could be weighed with current information on what they would want to do as far as changing.
Well, I mean, I think that's each individual person's, path towards their vote. For me, candidly, I'm not taking this into consideration with anything that's in front of us.
Right.
And
I think it's only fair.
if the council feels it appropriate to continue proposals, comprehensive plan, whatever it is, and we end up doing those things, then they walk whatever path they walk, whether they're side by side or one before the other. But I think it would behoove us, for a number of reasons, to make sure that we're making the decisions on anything that's presented to us within the frameworks of the current comprehensive plan
Can I make
until a new one is approved.
Can I make an example of what is in my mind? If we vote on this last change that we were talking about, and we change it, and then we vote on the project, I don't know what order comes first, and then, because I feel like comprehensive plan is old business, and then new business comes after, so the new business would be the project, and then say it passes, then we just refuted ourselves. That's the point I'm trying to bring up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think you got to make decisions based on the comprehensive plans that are in front of you and the zoning that's currently permitted for the various proposals. And if we change the comprehensive plan in a meeting and the proposal doesn't align with it and we don't feel like it's appropriate, then it doesn't get approved. I think that's what I'm saying. You got to make sure. I don't want this council making decisions based on drafts and potential plans when the reality is we have approved plans that we are contractually obligated to adhere to when we
Yeah, I
make
agree
these
with that.
decisions.
One question, though, even if we approve it, it's not done, Heather, we're sending it back to the plan commission.
It's done
No, it'll
for
be
us.
done.
It's
It'll be
done for
done.
us.
So that'll be the new comp plan as of that minute.
Yeah.
When you vote, and I'll get presumptuous, when you approve this with a list of edits, that will go back to the plan commission. If the plan commission approves all of your edits, then it's done,
Right.
and it's the new comp plan. If the plan commission says, no, we don't agree with some of your edits, then it comes back to you again, and you have to vote again to say, we really meant those edits. Or you could say, okay, fine, if the plan commission feels
Yeah,
strongly.
I know this is tedious. I'm just pointing out that if we vote with the edits,
Yep.
that's not the law of the land at that moment when we consider the next proposal. Because it has to go
Okay.
back to be approved by the plan commission. Just pointing out.
Was there some part of me that thought we were gonna have public commentary both meetings in May?
That's what you discussed last time.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be voting on it until,
We're going to vote on
but we'll
the
vote on the one
the
change.
so we're going to, in order to approve the comprehensive plan on the May 16th meeting, I think it's 16th.
18, I think.
May 18th meeting. we have to have a finalized plan to approve. So online, there will be essentially two plans posted online now, one with that one sliver being conventional subdivision and the other one being mixed residential, right?
No, I think the thought was we would just take a vote at the next meeting of what to include in the final document that we're bringing forward for consideration on the 18th. So we'll just have a specific.
Just one final document.
Yeah, specific vote. But we'll bring back two maps at the
That was
May
my
4th meeting, so
understanding,
you can see what's being proposed.
Okay.
Sarah, that's why I was okay with yellow, because the reality is, we will, in all 90-some% likelihood, have already voted on the PUD by the time this all gets sent to the Plan Commission and becomes, so it'll be what it is.
Well, I might move to continue that, so.
Well, then that would change that.
There's already,
Jason, I have just one question
it is
for you.
coming back to the planning commission with edits, right?
Yes.
As of right now.
I mean, if you change one thing,
We've already done that, so it's coming back to the planning
100%,
commission.
yeah.
So I just want to make sure that there was an implication that that's not, or there was, so I just want to make sure that was clear.
Just one thing that, and again, I don't want to open anything, again, we have some time. I don't know that we got any clarification, or I would need some clarification on what was, and we took out any reference to South Village. But I felt like in the last meeting, we were kind of like, we don't know what to do with that section in the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Adam, I don't know where it stands right now. What is in that section, and what is it labeled?
Yeah,
Is
so
it a black
we're-
hole, or is it on the plan as is?
No, we're working on an amended graphic that I will have to you on Friday, so again, we can discuss that. Where basically, we're getting away from land use specific language. We're removing land use color blocks and building footprints from that graphic to kind of say, in this area, you know, and just in terms of a kind of development block framework and some of the access considerations, but not apartments or not, or, you know,
So there'll be
where.
fairly clear language, but it will replace the current gateway language that exists for the area.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just curious what that's gonna feel like. I mean, I feel like it's a beefy, if there's any other beefy topic we haven't covered, that's the only one left.
Yeah, I guess I was under the impression we were pulling it entirely from the plan. Like, it would not even be referenced in there.
Okay. I'll say, we've been working on that graphic. I'll share it, and I would say maybe that's just the only other thing to vote on Monday is, do you want to include this kind of less specific version or remove it entirely, if that's fair?
Yeah,
We have to talk through it, but I mean, what I thought we kind of agree, or at least what you're suggesting is, it's not very defined, but you can't just not, in my opinion, it's hard to not have it on the map at all for all kinds of reasons, including getting dollars and everything else that we've talked about today. I think it's got to be there, but it can be really very loose and broad with just some real parameters that it's all really going to come before town council, but it's not missing. That's what I meant by.
And to better acknowledge, I think, the conversation we had last time, which is this continues to be an area where there's not clear consensus. We know it will be an area of interest, but that, yes, that development projects will
Okay.
be evaluated on a case-by-case basis.
That's the only other thing I thought we might get to today.
I mean, I think to be clear, like, when we talk about having things in the comprehensive plan for purposes of chasing dollars and getting money, it's in our best interest, it's the town's best interest. We don't have to have anything in there from South Village for the developers to chase money on their end. I mean, it's important to make sure that there's, you know, that
Yeah, I agree.
delineation is made, so.
I just don't think we can get real prescriptive on it, but I do think there could be something
Yep.
pretty benign.
That was my understanding.
I think you already got that. All right, anything else from council?
move adjourn.
First from Counselor
Second.
Sampson, second Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, same sign. Motion passes, all in favor, none opposed.
Awesome sauce.